Kicking off the list at number 10, Darkclaw. Coming from the Amalgam universe, where DC and Marvel combine powers figuratively and literally, we get a Wolverine-Batman double whammy. First appearing in Legends of the Darkclaw issue 1 back in 1996, at just age 5, young Logan Wayne witnessed the death of his parents, so now we have that Batman origin right off the bat to lay the foundation. Good stuff, always promising. And then Logan Wayne was sent to live with his uncle in Canada. But after poachers ambushed his home, we have even more family members biting the bullet. So far, so sad. Okay, so Logan Wayne enlisted then in the Royal Canadian Air Force and soon after the Weapon X program. This is all starting to sound a bit familiar, I bet. That's when the Wolverine origin comes in. Logan Wayne got the adamantium treatment, but it was a failure. In a way, kind of. Because Logan wasn't this mindless brute like he was in the comics. See, now he kept his sanity. So now we're starting to get more of a positive vibe, which is good for a good start of this list. Afterwards, he was a free man, so he studied criminology, forensics, gymnastics, martial arts, anything he could get his hands on, including the 127 major styles of combat. That mixed with the claws, Logan Wayne is somebody I'd never want to cross paths with, either as Batman or just Wolverine. Either way, I'm like, no, you guys are both gonna kill me. Number 9, Iron Lantern. From the Amalgam comic universe, Iron Lantern is of course a millionaire who is in charge of Stark Aircraft. While he's working on a flight simulator, it straight up took off and flew him somewhere else. Best simulator ever, if I do say so myself. Then he crash landed on the ground, injuring Stark, and he realized he was brought to a crashed alien spaceship. That spaceship belonged to none other than Roman Sir, who died before getting a chance to talk to Hal Stark. Not being in the best condition, obviously, after the rocky landing, Hal started working with his newfound tech on a new suit, hopefully to save his life. The Green Lantern upgrade of a suit saved his life for sure, but it also gave him the power to create anything out of green energy. He used a battery that reminded him of a lantern to do so. And then he went on to fight the aliens that had shot down Roman Sir and continued fighting enemies such as Madame Sapphire and Mandranesto, who, yes, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. Number 8, Hydra Wolverine. Hearing Cap say "Hail Hydra" in Endgame was a wild moment to witness in theaters. Steve using future knowledge to save the day instead of kicking everybody's ass in the elevator, whilst tipping his hat to comic book fans. It was a nice moment, beautifully written in. In Exiles issue 92, we get to see Logan turn sides briefly as well. In this reality, Wolverine is a Hydra agent and the Invisible Woman is Madame Hydra. And to make things even more strange, they're both lovers. Yeah, this odd couple here alongside Slaymaster left their reality after fighting the Exiles, and they tried to conquer the multiverse. Hydra Wolvie wasn't around too long, for he was actually brutally taken out by the Cat with his own claws in New Exiles issue 12. Number 7, Captain Logan. Coming from the Noir series, Earth 90214, Jim Logan was a detective. Much like our 616 Logan, his past was also troubled. His partner was his half-brother named Dog Logan, who has the brains of a bedbug and the manners of a gutter rat. And that's in his words, not mine. His origins are a little bit messy when it comes to the Noir verse, because in X-Men Noir, Mark of Cain, Wolverine's origins are that of a bootlegger whose past is never really touched on. All we know is that he's a former lover of Jean Grey, and that he was the one who took out Scott Summers' left eye. But here in Wolverine Noir, he's a detective with a gritty Catholic past. Either way, the Noir versions of Wolverine is quite dark, and although his claws aren't built in this time around, he still has them as a weapon of choice. Real Freddy Krueger style, I like it.
Coming in at number 6, we have Strange Supreme from the first season of the Disney Plus show, What If? In an alternate timeline where instead of losing his hands in a car accident, Stephen Strange instead has to endure the loss of the love of his life, Dr. Christine Palmer. Desperate to bring her back, Strange trains in the mystic arts, but finds himself drawn to much darker powers as he realizes that Christine's death is a fixed point in this timeline, and it would take an incredible amount of magical power to undo it. Turning to the dark side and becoming Strange Supreme, Strange absorbs centuries worth of magical beings before finally absorbing even his own better self. Tragically, even when he does have enough power to save Christine, she is disgusted at the monster he's become to save her, leaving him alone as the entire universe collapses around him.
Number 5, Zombie Wolverine. We're just a day out from another episode of What If on Disney Plus, and we're all so excited, and I'll be honest, a little bit nervous because those zombie Avengers are still superpowered and they're still on the way. Zombie Wolverine first appeared in Ultimate Fantastic Four issue 22. Now at the Xavier Institute, Wolverine and the X-Men were taking on a zombified Alpha Flight when Magneto came in to saved the day. He was part of the crew that went to fight off the remaining horde, but I did introduce him as Zombie Wolverine, so yes, he was sadly infected. Wolverine was bitten by Zombie Hawkeye and Zombie Cap, and after he turned into one himself, he defeated and then ate the Silver Surfer. An afternoon snack quickly gave Wolverine cosmic powers, quite the upgrade. It's a gory good time. If we had X-Men in the MCU right now, the zombie episodes would have been so much better, but we can't complain, it's still good stuff. Wolverine is a main character in the Marvel Zombies Dead Days and a minor antagonist in Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness. If you haven't read either, I recommend you read both of them. Read all the zombie comics. I shouldn't have to sell you on how cool zombie superhero comics are. You know?
Coming in at number 4, we have Doctor Strange of the year 1602 from the Marvel series of the same name. In this offshoot of the multiverse where many of Marvel's classic heroes were now born during the era of the 17th century, Dr. Stephen Strange was an advisor to the first Queen Elizabeth, and the right-hand man to the monarchy when it came to all matters relating to magic. This old-timey take on the character would be weird enough on its own, but gets extra bizarre when you consider that this version of Strange was eventually executed by the monarchy for treason, but continued to give guidance to this Earth's heroes as a ghost from the afterlife. Talk about not retiring when your time is up, am I right?
Number 3, Steel Corpse. Tony and his suit have always been so close, it's had its back many times, sometimes even acting for itself and making a judgment call. Like in Iron Man 3, it literally woke Tony up from a nightmare aggressively. We love that future tech. But in the Age of X storyline, the suit literally has his back as Tony and the suit begin to merge. Ugh, I'm itchy just reading this. This started right after a virus began taking its toll on Tony. He was rapidly declining health-wise, so we chose a more fitting name, Steel Corpse, to be kind of funny, but also he looks like a corpse, so he's like, I'm just gonna admit it. He, alongside other, much healthier Avengers, were tasked to take down mutants, but when the gang got there, they of course opted to save them instead. Superhero twist of logic, we love it. Only Tony's advanced suit wasn't exactly on board with his new plan, and it started to act out by itself. It still wanted to save the day, although this was not the right way to do it. Captain America had no choice but to end the life of Steel Corpse in order to save the mutants. Number 2, Old Man Logan. Mark Millar's Old Man Logan begins in volume 3 of Wolverine on issue 66, and this is a future where supervillains have sadly won for the most part. Hulk and She-Hulk had kids, the Hulklings, who would beat the crap out of you if you didn't pay rent. So yeah, it's an odd future to say the least. Everybody has their own territory, so Logan now has to pay up for living in his. Hawkeye, who was much older and this time around he was blind, needed Logan's assistance to get across the country and deliver a secret package. This was a way Logan could get some of that rent money, so let's do it. Just talking about Logan paying rent money is a weird thing. When they get back from their trip, things have changed drastically. Now Hulk Gang actually took out Logan's family because, you know, they were bored. And that's what people do when they're bored in this dark future. No more games, no more talking, now it's time for Logan just to get payback, simple as that. Alternate reality, same temper. Logan gets Banner, he gets him right through the chest, so naturally he hulks out. And then when Hulk eats Logan, you think that would for sure be the end of it, but that's when Logan pops out from inside Banner. Surprise, we're gonna throw up. And finally, number 1, Iron Hammer. Coming from Warp World, Iron Hammer, aka Stark Odinson, first came to life in issue 3 of Infinity Wars. So when Gamora had the Infinity Stones, she trapped everybody's soul in the Soul Gem, and then folded the universe in half, which resulted in all of our heroes merging together. Pretty fun. So rightfully referred to as Warp World, we soon get to meet Soldier Supreme, Ghost Panther, Weapon Hex, and Iron Hammer. Stark Odinson in this pocket universe is the son, of course, of Howard Odin, chieftain of Asgard. He has the Iron Hammer armor, and of course he has a massive literal hammer of the gods to get the message across. Being a combination of both, he can face powerful villains like Stain Odinson, who is a blend of Loki and Obadiah Stane, and even Madam Hell, one of the coolest looking versions definitely, and also one of the more powerful. A great note to end on.
Coming in at number 10, we have the undead Doctor Strange from the Marvel Zombies universe. While this version of Stephen Strange was able to avoid the initial outbreak of the zombie virus that destroyed their version of Earth, he was eventually tragically bitten and converted into a member of the undead army while defending a dimensional doorway that would have allowed the zombie swarm to invade and infest other realities. The newly zombified Doctor Strange now uses this doorway to peer through the alternate world worlds of the Marvel multiverse and find ideal worlds for the zombie invasion to begin anew, making this a very weird but also very dangerous interpretation of Doctor Strange. Coming in at number 9, we have the Soldier Supreme, a very odd combination of Doctor Strange and the Punisher. On an alternate Earth where vampires have killed most of the world's heroes and converted much of the normal population, one of the few vigilantes remaining is Frank Castle. Possessed by the spirit and knowledge of Dr. Stephen Strange as a last-ditch effort to save this reality, the Punisher and the Sorcerer Supreme combined into a single vampire-slaying enemy, turning the Punisher's violent tendencies into the last defense against an unstoppable vampire army. Coming in at number 8, we have the Ultimate Universe version of Doctor Strange, aka Stephen Strange Jr. In the Ultimate Marvel Universe, this version of Doctor Strange that we're introduced to is actually the son of a more traditional interpretation of the character. Following in his father's footsteps, Stephen Strange Jr. eventually becomes the Sorcerer Supreme following his dad's disappearance. But the odd part that gets him on this list is unfortunately his over-the-top and needlessly nasty death. During the Ultimatum event, a highly controversial storyline in which Magneto wiped out millions of lives and resulted in dozens of over-the-top and edgy deaths for many Marvel heroes, Doctor Strange had his head popped like a literal balloon by Dormammu possessing his cloak. Most people dislike this event because of how deliberately edgy it tried to be, and with an anticlimactic death like this, it's really not hard to see why. I mean, his cloak? Really?
Number 7. Iron Man Noir. Coming from the Noir series, Iron Man of Earth 90214 had to go all the way to Atlantis to fix his heart problem. What am I talking about? Let's find out. Tony in this reality was an industrialist adventurer. It feels like National Treasure almost. We meet Tony and the crew and they're looking for something called the Jade Mask. This mask that was said to cure any kind of ailment, so he figured, hey, it's worth a shot to fix the old ticker. It didn't work, so some traders then revealed themselves once the mask was found, so Tony and Rhodey escaped and returned to New York. He goes on yet another treasure hunt with Rhodey, this time to Atlantis, because he heard a rumor that this power source could also do wonders to his heart, maybe, perhaps. Tony gets the trident and again, he gets betrayed. Zemo and his forces were strong enough to kidnap Pepper, and Tony and Rhodes need a new plan. They travel to Zemo's castle, and it's then that it's revealed that Zemo is actually Tony's father, brainwashed by Strucker. And he was also equipped with Iron Man suits because action and adventure. As far as noir storylines go, Iron Man isn't my favorite, but the whole Nathan Drake vibe that Tony has is still quite fun. And also, Atlantis. It's kind of weird. Dive in. Number 6. Earth X. Also known as Earth 9997, this version of Iron Man hit the pages back in Earth X issue 0. This time around, the human race is at risk due to the release of Terrigen mists. So Tony decides, you know what, I'm just going to isolate myself, not being sure how the mist would react, which is a fair point. So in turn, he would wear his armor all the time, then eventually he made an Iron Manor in New York. Super cautious, you know, with today's stuff going on, you can't really blame him. He went even further when he decided it was best to create his own team, the Iron Avengers. Guy was super paranoid. So eventually Galactus did come along, so Tony used his Iron Manor and distracted the Celestials beforehand. Now during this, Tony lost his life. Some wreckage impaled him, and for the first time in a while, Tony was able to breathe open air. How, you ask? Well, he died, and his soul immediately went to the realm of the dead, and that's when Captain Marvel's soul recruited him for an army set to take on death. Which is, first of all, nuts, because even after you die in Marvel Comics, you can't just chill out in heaven. You have to like go fight another war immediately. Like, come on. But Death did eventually die, and that's when Tony got another huge upgrade in Paradise. Using the High Evolutionary's devices, Tony was changed into this angelic being, of course, still with wings. And he looked like Iron Man, so that's fun. You can customize your own angel outfit once you get up there. That's good to know. Number 5. Tony Doom. Since What If is currently dropping weekly episodes on Disney+, we have to mention one of the more wild issues. What if Tony Stark had become Dr. Doom? It would probably be pretty bad. Yeah, yes, it is. So here in the storyline, that both of them go to the same college instead of Reed Richards being Victor's roommate. So now it's Tony. Two geniuses in one dorm. Sounds like they would make dreams come true, but in reality, it was a living nightmare waiting to happen. Doom tricked Tony into switching bodies Freaky Friday style. And on top of that, Tony's memories were also wiped. So Tony, in Doom's body, gets in heat for the experiment, and in turn, he gets sent back to Latveria. Meanwhile, Doom is in line to take over Stark Industries. He still is Tony Stark, so down the road, Doom Industries was now a competitor to Stark Industries. He's brilliant in any way. The pair end up creating their own armors. Of course, Tony builds a red and gold Doom armor, while Doom makes a green and gray Iron Man armor. I'll give you a second to Absorb that, there we go. It's a fun little swap with good action, but it's a little bit too confusing of a Freaky Friday type plot. But it's worth a shot, go give it a try. Number 4, Dead Man Walking. We look now over to Fantastic Four: The End, released in 2007. Most of Tony's story here was the same, but during the Mutant Wars, Tony lost his life. Now he didn't get redirected to a paradise where he would then become an Iron Man themed angel. Instead, he uploaded his subconsciousness into an AI. So now he lives through his armors, just swapping back and forth, walking around, which sounds like a solution, I guess, but living forever? Come on, Tony, I don't think that's a way to go, really.
Coming in at number 3, we're back in the world of animal puns with Croctor Strange. That's right, Loki isn't the only magical hero with an alligator alter ego. Hailing from the same reality as the meme-worthy Spectacular Spider-Man, Croctor Strange is an anthropomorphic crocodile who learned his magic from a being known as the Rancid One, and often clashes with the pig-themed Dormammu. And if that's not punny enough for you, this version of Strange is also a member of the Unhumanati instead of the Illuminati, which also features a mouse-themed version of Iron Man. Ooh, and I thought they said Disney taking over wouldn't have any weird side effects. Coming in at number 2, we have a wild combination with the DC Universe with Doctor Strange Fate. During the Marvel vs. DC miniseries of comics, an alternate reality known as Amalgam Comics was born, featuring combinations of iconic DC and Marvel heroes put into one body. One of the most notable of all of these crazy combinations was the being known as Doctor Strange Fate, a three-way mix-up between Dr. Stephen Strange, Dr. Charles Xavier, and the DC hero Dr. Fate. Man, this guy's got more PhDs than a diploma factory. With all of these magical, telepathic, and reality-warping powers combined, Dr. Strange Fate was incredibly powerful, but one of the weirdest aspects of the character was the fact that he knew he was just a temporary creation of a crossover event, and thus spent much of his time attempting to find a way to keep his reality ongoing. How very meta of you, Dr. Strange Fate. And finally, coming in at our top spot is the only Doctor Strange variant with feathers. We have Doctor Strange. Hailing from the same weird world as Howard the Duck, aka Earth 791,021, you might be wondering why a duck-themed version of Doctor Strange is labeled as weirder than a crocodile-themed one. And that is because this Doctor Strange is also a drunk. Studying under the ancient wino, this Strange's version of communicating with spirits is literally drinking spirits, although he does still possess enough magical energy to be able to transport himself and various other duck-themed heroes to different dimensions, including the mainstream Marvel universe. Just maybe lay off the booze a little bit, I'm not sure how well birds can handle their liquor.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Anthony the Vampire. Making his first appearance in Ultimate Avengers issue 14, Anthony was the greatest vampire hunter who ever walked this earth. He trained Daredevil, Blade, and Edward Cullen. Okay, the last one I lied about, but still, you get it. When he meets up with Blade later on, he has a new look. He was eventually bitten by a vampire, so he became their leader as well. The coolest part about Anthony is that he uses a Mark I Iron Man suit to get around during the day, so the sun doesn't, evaporate him or whatever. He captured and turned Smart Hulk into a bloodsucker, but his armor was stolen and used by Stick to fight back. Another Tony, another suit. Imagine you're in trouble and this guy rolls up on you. What a surprise that would be. Issue 16 of Ultimate Avengers opens with a great Twilight parody, but this is also the last time we see this Iron Man take flight. And that's because Hulk punched his head off, and usually when he does that, you don't come back, vampire or not. Number 9, Wild Thing. For this one, we go over to the MC2 universe where Elektra married Wolverine and soon after came a child, of course. That daughter was named Rena Logan, and if that name doesn't ring a bell, she's also called Wild Thing. Marvel's MC2 imprint quickly gained momentum after What If, issue 105, which introduced us to a universe full of other super kids. Wild Thing's powers are very similar to her father's, obviously. I mean, even just by looking at her, you could probably make a guess who she's an offspring of. all that aggression. You're like, okay, it's definitely Wolverine. She also possesses the power of regenerative healing and super strength, but what makes her stand out really is the psychic claws. Instead of adamantium claws, she has minor psionic abilities that allow her to manifest her own claws, but if she focuses hard enough, if she really thinks, she can have claws, real life claws like her father, and dish out physical damage too. Mental, physical, she's got you beat in both realms. Number 8, Lord Iron. Coming from Marvel 1602, Lord Iron was amongst the other heroes who rose to fame, but a little bit back in time. See, Captain America was literally shot back in time, so the Age of Heroes has to begin there. And in turn, we get some fun versions of our Avengers. Anthony Stark was taken and held captive in the Holy Land during the English and Spanish War, a little different than the cave that he ended up with in our time. He was forced to make weapons still for them for weeks, mirroring Tony's origin in a fun, older way. David Banner was torturing him this time around though, so Anthony makes his own suit powered by lightning bottles. Okay. Now it doesn't matter which timeline Tony ends up in, he's destined to be Iron Man one way or another.
Coming in at number 7, we have the powerless Dr. Stephen Strange. In issue number 40 of the first volume of Marvel's original What If comics, we got to see an alternate reality where Baron Mordo wound up becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. And while most of the story would focus on Mordo's misadventures in the role, Dr. Strange's role in it is definitely unique to say the least. When Stephen Strange showed up on the Ancient One's doorstep wondering if there was any possibility the mystic arts could heal his hands, the Ancient One simply taught him some anxiety-decreasing meditation and then sent him on his way, making Strange believe that it was all some sort of yoga retreat. This version of Strange would go on to merely become a peaceful professor at a medical school, which, compared to the Sorcerer Supreme's usual lifestyle, is definitely a little bit, well, strange.
Number 6, Weapon X. One of the more extreme versions of Wolverine, Weapon X came from the Age of Apocalypse storyline, and the first time we meet him is in X-Men Alpha issue 1. Weapon X was a member of the X-Men, only this time around Magneto is running the team. How lovely is that? He's great. One of the most notable differences between this Logan and others is that Weapon X is missing a hand. He had battled Cyclops, and although he lost it in the fight, Logan can still use claws on that arm. Now in this reality, Weapon X was married to Jean Grey, so a little light in this warped reality. Love still exists out there, it's true. He later on became Weapon Omega, aka the heir to Apocalypse, so it's really not that great. There's love, but there's also evil stuff.
Coming in at number 5, we have the elderly Doctor Strange from Earth 982. An alternate universe that mainly focused on potential children of Marvel heroes and the next generation of crime fighters, Earth 982, or MC2 as it's more commonly known, is also home to one of the most unique versions of Doctor Strange, because instead of his traditional salt and pepper look, this Stephen Strange has gone full Gandalf the White. Having long since retired from the position of Sorcerer Supreme, an elderly Strange is called back into action as a master of the mystic arts when the new wielder of the role, Doc Magus, begins to tamper with darker powers. And while Strange would need help from the younger generation of heroes, this grizzled but still magical sorcerer is definitely one of the coolest looking versions of the character.
Number 4, Mr. Murderhands. There's a nickname, a rather fitting one, really. Logan from Earth 65 first appeared in Spider-Gwen Volume 2, Issue 20. He was a former Japanese samurai who was cursed by a witch. The curse was that you have to live on Earth for all the days that his targets, the people that he killed, would have. So he's gonna see quite a few days, basically. His memory here is also erased, and it happens right after he joins the Weapon X program, where he's also given his trademark adamantium claws. When he later joins S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Black Ops team, his fellow operatives give him the nickname of Mr. Murderhands. Nice. Oh, this is your teammate, Edward Murderhands. Yeah, make sure you sign in. Great, break a like, team. Number 3, Primal Wolverine. A side we don't get to see too often is Logan's animalistic side, although maybe it's for the best. We don't want to see that. We don't want any of that smoke, really. Coming from the Mutant X series back in 1998, we pick up with Wolverine, Sabretooth, and Wildchild, but this time around they're referred to as the Pack. Now in this story, Logan still goes crazy after Weapon X does their thing, but this time he's not alone. Sabretooth and Wildchild also endure these crazy experiments, each of them also going primal in the end. Now the 3 of them end up roaming the Canadian wilderness like an actual pack. But this pack is one you want to avoid. They end up going nuts by the end of the comic, like I said, but while they're in the wild, they did see other mutants, and in turn they all work together for a hot moment to figure out what was happening in Weapon X. They have the right idea, but those animalistic impulses are just too powerful. messy. Number 2. Iron Goblin. Making his first appearance in the Spider Island series, Iron Goblin wasn't made through any reality warping or anything like that. Instead, this happens during the Resistance assault on Spider-Queen, which is sounding crazier than what I just said. Tony Stark ends up getting captured and infected with the spider virus. He's going nuts at this point, so the rest of the heroes try and snap him out of it by using Goblin Formula, which is a solution, I guess. I don't know, read a book, read a comic book, Avengers. Something bad's gonna happen. So he went from being a spider monster to Iron Goblin. Pretty crazy 24 hours for Tony. Tony was still Tony after this point though, despite the evil green look on his face. Like he even said Norman stole his armor before, so he was just evening it out. Haha, he's funny, he's still Tony, nice. But as time went by, every minute that passed, that formula started to in fact change Tony. Like for example, he was flying around on the glider, although he can fly with his suit. It's not looking good. He knew he was going insane, so he sacrificed himself when the Queen's army attacked. Still a hero nonetheless, although he's mean and green and throwing pumpkin bombs. And finally, number 1, Old Man Venom. Coming from Edge of Venomverse issue 4, we see Logan get captured by Angel, who is Archangel in disguise, and Hulk Jr. This story played out differently than the Old Man Logan storyline because this Wolverine told Bruce Banner Jr. what happened to his father. Archangel took Logan to the danger room of the X-Mansion, and that's where he and Bruce Jr. just ambushed him. Wasn't very happy this time around, although the first one wasn't really happy in any way, I guess, either. Bruce Jr. had this idea that maybe if he kills Logan, he can then use his DNA and create symbiote hybrid clones, but what ended up happening was Logan fought a Venomsaurus Rex, that same T-Rex from the original Old Man Logan storyline. The same one we see chasing Hawkeye and Logan. So he fought it, got eaten by it, and then considering the fact that Logan was eaten by the Hulk and ripped his way out, we already know that this is gonna be much better. He comes out better than ever. The symbiote ends up bonding with Logan in the T-Rex tummy, giving us a pretty exciting extreme upgrade. He rips his way through the dinosaur and subsequently rips his way through his enemies. Number 10, the new Red and Blue. Superman 162 was an imaginary tale where Superman splits himself into 2 parts to be more productive. Superman Red and Superman Blue. They were great. They both did a bang up job, fixing up cities, saving the day. The love triangle that was happening in Superman comics was also fixed. Superman Blue married Lana, Superman Red married Lois. They did a joint wedding. It was all smiles. And then way later in 1998, we got to see another version of this story play out, only it wasn't as fun and carefree. Here, Superman lost some of his solar powers and instead developed energy-based ones. In order to contain said energy, Supes needed a new blue and white suit. Those new powers allowed for Superman to sense radioactivity, electricity, magnetic forces, and then he would absorb a lot of this power at the same time. When Cyborg Superman teamed up with Toyman, he split the new Supes into 2 and his personality was also separated. Blue Superman wanted to think things through, come up with a plan, whereas Red Superman, well, he was literally red hot. He wanted to take action. Both of these guys ended up loving Lois Lane, so there's no split wedding this time around. In fact, Lois got so sick of both of them, she kicked them out. Imagine saying no to 2 Supermen, you're like, no and no. Not you guys, get out of here. The guys then decided to have a race because that's what mattered at that point. Sure. You know what does matter though? If you click those thumbs up. Yeah, those likes go a long way for the studio, and if you're not already subscribed, take off your jacket, stay a while. It's nice here, I promise. Number 9, Super Santa. He sees you when you're sleeping, and he has a quadruple barrel Gatling gun. How lovely. This 1995 Elseworld story puts Superman in a post-apocalyptic future where he has to go toe-to-toe with these crazy, mutated army of Batmen. The world is much darker than the one we know now. I mean, literally, these nuclear fallouts have left Superman without his UV rays. Good old lack of sunlight. No tans for you. So he hits the gym, updates his naughty list, and when the crazy gang called the DNA Dictators, with a K instead of a C, rob Bruce Wayne's grave and make a monster Batman, only one man can save us all. Super Santa. Number 8, Super Soldier. Coming from the Amalgam Universe, first appearing in Marvel vs. DC issue 3, fans in the 90s got to see these 2 comic book powerhouses join forces, making these lovely mashups of characters from each universe, origin stories, interconnected. It's a great time. In this story, Clark had no pre-existing powers until the Super Soldier Serum came along. We're seeing the two worlds already collide. He had pretty much won the war single-handedly back in 1942 after this, but then he came along Unrecognizable, this massive evil robot sent in, of course, by Lex Luthor. That's when Super Soldier sacrificed his life taking down the villain, and it wasn't until 50 years later that the JLA found his frozen body. But even then, 50 years later, Lex Luthor was still alive. He was keeping it young with some handy-dandy green K meteorite. That must be what Jennifer Aniston uses. Super Soldier ended up taking down Ultra Metello, and in turn, Lex was arrested. We love happy endings. No beards or Gatling guns this time around. We're on the right track.
And in 7, Kingdom Come Flash. Wally West from Earth 22 is weird to me since it feels so backwards, everything does. In the Kingdom Come universe of Earth 22, Wally West received his speed through unknown means, but nonetheless he still became the Flash. And when Superman retired, Wally kept going, but he kept going and never stopped. Running from scene to scene, disaster to disaster, never taking a break. Before this, however, he ended up having a daughter, who got her speed genetically and became Kid Flash. However, this is where it gets weird to me. His children were named Iris West and Barry West, and it sets me on edge because like they're supposed to be older than him, and then Wally is supposed to inherit the Flash mantle. It's weird. Not to mention that this time Barry and Iris are actual biological siblings, which only makes all the memes about the Arrowverse even worse at this point. But considering Wanda and Pietro from the Ultimate Universe, it's nothing new for comics. Gotta love them Game of Thrones-esque love stories, am I right? Okay, well in this universe the kids don't actually end up dating, but you know what I mean. And at 6, Savitar. Yes. As a fan of the Arrowverse, I felt the need to include one of the most interesting evil speedsters on the show. Savitar, while sharing the name with another evil speedster from the comics, actually is revealed to be a time remnant of Barry Allen in the show, being more of a future Flash than Savitar. Honestly, he's a combination of both. His story though is very confusing, in essence making himself a paradox. In the post-Flashpoint Arrowverse timeline, Savitar comes back from the future to kill Iris West before her and Barry get married. This causes Barry to create as many time remnants as possible, which is basically a clone of himself, in order to stop him. But Savitar kills all of them except one. The one he spares then gets shunned by the rest of Team Flash for not being the real Barry Allen, even though he's still technically the real Barry. It's weird. So in an act of fury, the Time Remnant runs back in time, creating a new identity for himself as the first speedster and the god of speed known as Savitar, and then somehow gets his face badly burned. I feel like I need to return him to Papa John's. When he fails at killing Iris, however, he tries to scatter himself across time to become immortal, but is stopped by Team Flash and is shot in the back by Iris, which lets the paradox catch up. Season 3 was weird, man. It's nothing compared to Season 7 though. Halfway through into number 5, Bizarro Flash. When Bizarro 3 found himself infused with radiation from a blue sun, he got the power to replicate himself as well as create other Bizarro life forms based upon the likeness of people from Earth, which is gonna have a ton of legal repercussions, but whatever. He uses this power to create a cube-shaped Minecraft-like Earth he calls Bizarro World. One of the inhabitants he creates for it is Bizarro Flash. The post-crisis Bizarro Flash is morbidly obese and is super slow, which is just ridiculous. But for some reason he can also fly at the speed of light apparently, which also doesn't make any sense, but hey, it's comic books, what are you gonna do? Some versions of this Bizarro can still run fast but get winded easily, so they don't pose much of a threat. Certainly not against the likes of someone like Kingdom Come Flash, who never stops running. This version of Bizarro Flash also has a line of mustard for a logo instead of a lightning bolt, although I do have an odd craving for hot dogs now. And at 4, Leah Nelson. Leah Nelson from Earth 9 is a very different version of the Flash to say the least. On her Earth, Leah is the second most recognized person on the planet. She was an instant celebrity since her parents were the first people to visit Jupiter, her mother was a bit of a hero herself, and her father was a Nightwing agent, even if he wasn't very good at it. But Leah is a being of light, and once able to control this power, she took on the moniker of the Flash. Since she is a being of light, Leah is also able to travel at the speed of light, basically making her a speedster without having a connection to the Speed Force, which I admit may frustrate some of you with her being on this list, but I thought it was interesting and is certainly a weird version of the Flash. Leah also has a whole host of powers, including superhuman speed, metamorphosis, where she uses light to create solid holograms and alter her appearance, energy construct creation, allowing her to make solid objects out of light, energy projection, which is just beams of energy, and energy absorption, which in essence makes her immune to any form of light, including lasers. Just think of energy as lightning and then boom, even more flashlight.
Number 3, Karkan the Mighty. Coming from Superboy issue 183, Karkan was raised by gorillas, Karkan being Kal-El. His ship ended up landing in the jungles of Africa, and you realize that he's different from the others after he learns how to fly. It's basically Tarzan if he was Superman, hence why his name is a combination of both. This version is quite super, literally. I mean, when he's not swinging through vines and hucking his own poop at people, he's saving hundreds of animals from floods. How lovely. Even if it means carrying them by their ears, whatever it takes. He does try his luck in the big city though afterwards, but obviously being raised by gorillas, he had a tough time fitting in. Honestly, good. Fitting in is overrated anyways. If you want to do backflips in the jungle, just go for it. Number 2. Bizarro Superman. First appearing in Superboy issue 68, Bizarro Superman is, as his name suggests, bizarre. He's a man of steel but with the opposite intentions, and his powers are also opposites. Instead of breathing icy cold dad breath, he can now breathe fire, like a dragon. Now he has laser ice eyes too, it's pretty fun. The interactions with Superboy are fun. Bizarro Superman throws Clark across the deck of a pool, and he has to like fly his way casually and steer into the pool to blend in. It's honestly trouble. It's kind of like the Iron Giant, but like crazier? The new 52 version of Bizarro was created when Lex Luthor tried to clone Superman, and instead of waiting 10 years for the project to be completed, Lex released him after 5 years, so in turn now he has his pale, but still jacked look. We love Bizarro Superman, honestly. He's like a Frankenstein that can bench press 1,000 pounds. It's pretty fun. And finally, number 1. Lex-L. Appearing only in Superman issues 230 and 231, we find Lex-L born on the planet Krypton instead of Clark. So Superman, but bald. Super Caillou, basically. His hair loss at such a young age is actually explained in the comic because when he was really young, Lex-L's father, Jor-El, held his head next to kryptonite as a punishment. So it's actually pretty tragic. When Lex and his father did crash land on Earth after fleeing their doomed planet, the rocket distracted Martha and Jonathan Kent, who were bank robbers in the story, and they couldn't see, so they ended up crashing. So that's Clark's life here. His parents died in that crash, and Lex-L grew up to become Superman. It's a fun one-off story. We get to see Clark take out Jor-El and then go on a crime spree. Just a total flip in characteristics. Also, bonus points for Lex wearing a wig on his off time to hide his secret identity. Way more committed to the cause than Clark and his normal reading glasses. Number 10. Vampire Batman. We'll start on a Twilight note here, okay? Bruce Wayne of Earth 43 appeared in the 1992 Batman and Dracula Red Rain story written by Doug Munch with pencils by Kelly Jones. So after a group of victims met their fate in the same way with their, throats slashed and not looking great, Batman realized that he's got vampires to now deal with. Vampires led, of course, by the one and only Dracula. So Batman really goes the extra mile to get the job done here because he meets a rogue vampire named Tanya and opts to get bit. He's like, right here please, thank you. He turns himself into a vampire in order to fight Dracula. Awesome, sold. Debit? Thank you. Okay, so now Batman lures these rogue vampires into the Batcave, detonates an explosion, completely dusting Wayne Manor, so now all the sunlight hits the bloodsuckers, poof, they perish, and Batman used his new wings, his actual bat wings, and then flew to fight Dracula. Bat Bruce won the fight by impaling Dracula on a broken electrical pole. Bruce wasn't looking good also. He lost a lot of blood, so he actually died, but the Batman will live forever as now a vampire, so that's good. That's a positive ending, I think. Number 9. The Batman Who Laughs. Coming from the dark multiverse, first appearing in Dark Days the Casting, created by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, comes a twisted Earth 22 version of Batman, the Batman Who Laughs. Sounds like a good time, it's actually a nightmare. The Joker here is cruel. He goes on a spree throughout Gotham, just chaos, pure chaos. He took out Jim Gordon, and then he poisoned Batman. So once Batman was able to move his body again post-poison problem, he broke the Joker's neck. But even so, the Joker was prepared for this. After the snap, he let this toxin out that infected anybody near him. So Batman now got infected. Cut to 2 days later, Batman and Superman are talking about what just happened. Then when Superman tells Bruce that a kid infected by Joker venom bit a doctor, Bruce Wayne laughs. He lets out a little laugh, but he catches himself after, and even Superman is thrown off. He's like, okay, something's not right here. So a day later, Bruce called the team to the Batcave, and he went full Omni-Man. He took out the entire team before anybody really caught on to this new personality. Weird and evil. This list is dark already. Number 8. Time Stream Batman. Batman: The Return of Bruce Wayne is a 6-parter written by Grant Morrison, released in 2010, and we pick up from Final Crisis issue 6 when Darkseid shot Bruce into the past. He travels throughout history, these fun crazy eras, until eventually he's back to present day Gotham City. Now the series is 6 issues, so we get 6 different types of Batman. This is like a 6 in 1 point. It's pretty juicy. So issue 1 gives us a caveman style Bruce Wayne. He meets an immortal caveman as well who becomes Vandal Savage. Issue 2, Bruce has to deal with witches. Okay. Issue 3, Batman is front and center in the high seas. Pirate Batman going head to head, of course, with Pirate Blackbeard. Enough said. Issue 4, we move to the Wild Wild West, where Bruce is a talented gunfighter, yet still he doesn't like guns and chooses not to kill. Vandal Savage returns here, but this time with the help of one Jonah Hex. Lovely. Issue 5, we find Bruce in what appears to be the 1930s, right after his parents actually died. So Bruce is taken to the hospital to recover from a gunshot from the previous Tale Out of Time, and that's when he meets a woman named Marcia. Marcia believed that Thomas Wayne actually killed his wife and then faked his own death. She was a friend of Martha's, so she was trying to get some peace of mind, trying to get to the bottom of this. So Bruce followed her to a graveyard without her knowing, and then that's when we find out she's actually a member of the Black Glove organization, and she intended on sacrificing Bruce to Barbados. She wanted immortality all along. Don't we all? Issue 6 ties everything together nicely, so if you haven't read it yet and this is piquing your interest, go check it out for yourself. Finish it off. It's a good time. And if you're enjoying this list as well so far, don't forget to share the love and hit that thumbs up. You guys rock. Thank you so much. Now back to some weird Batman alternates. Number 7, Boxer Superman. I feel like nowadays it's all about celebrity boxing matches. Every other weekend it's someone fighting Lil Baby or whatever. One Logan Paul brother is fighting a robot. This next one might be a thing that actually happens. Who knows anymore? Coming from Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams back in 1978, part of the all-new collector's edition, basically this alien named Rattlar, who is part of a species known as the Scrub, visits Earth and demands that we pick our best fighter to go against theirs. Rattlar woke up and chose violence. Okay, cool. So they picked their scrapper, and it of course was the ever so fearsome behemoth Hunya. Alright, great. Now if we refuse this after school space fight, the Scrub will destroy our planet. So Muhammad Ali argues that since Superman technically isn't from Earth, he must be the one instead who fights. Guy's literally a champ. And he's absolutely correct, he has a point. Rattlar is actually amused by this, so he thinks, you know what, instead, why don't you both just fight each other? That ought to be entertaining, right? The fight is set to take place on Bodace, which is orbiting a red star, so it's actually a fair boxing match at this point. No powers for Clark. So Muhammad Ali trains Superman to become a professional boxer in just a few months' time. The fight is then broadcasted intergalactically, millions tune in, pay-per-view probably charged so much for the match, and then Superman gets beat by Muhammad Ali. How amazing is this? Not only that, Ali continues to take on the behemoth as well, knocking him down in the 4th round. He's the greatest in all of the cosmos, or as Muhammad Ali says, they're both the greatest. Okay, so sweet. Number 6, Super Ant-Man. Not from the Amalgam Universe, but dangerously close to it. From Action Comics issue 296, called The Invasion of Ants, we see Superman rocking a different but nice look. So at first we see him and he's on the side of a building with an ant mask head on, and he's asking for other giant ants to follow him, even making buzz noises to furthermore convince the ants. Okay, what the hell's going on here? Well, after a colony of giant ants were mutated from a nuclear war on another planet, they decided to come check out Earth, as if we didn't have enough ants already. So Superman comes by to save the day, and he figures out that if he uses red kryptonite radiation, he can give himself an ant's head and then communicate with them. If this one isn't considered weird, well, maybe the next one will get you. Number 5, Centaur Superman. Superman Wonder Woman, Whom Gods Destroy, was an issue released back in 1996, and it's a 4-part Elseworlds miniseries that shows us a world where the Germans ended up winning World War II. It's an odd future, to say the least. Bruce Wayne is now the president, and once Cersei sends out her squad to kidnap Lana Lang, Clark and Lois then have to fly to Europe to save her. Clark didn't even use his powers either, he just booked a normal human Southwest flight. Gotta ride in style, I guess, no matter what the odds are. So during this flight, however, trouble came back around for them and the plane went down over Germany. The goddess Athena then turned Lois into Wonder Woman, where she would then go toe-to-toe with the Diana Wonder Woman, who in this story was on the bad side. And as for Clark, when the plane went down, Cersei turned him into a centaur. Just a handsome half-man, half-horse, noble steed. Now of course, looking the way he did, all these other ladies, centaur ladies, were racing over to meet this dashing man. After they all introduced themselves to each other and shake hoofs, all that good stuff, they would then just raid towns and party hard. This is a horrible time for Lois, like she's fighting for her life, and Clark is just prancing around like he's on season 7 of Bachelor in Paradise. He's loving this. Number 4, Super Menace. Coming from Superman issue 137 titled The Super brat from Krypton, surprise, Kal-El has a clone. So when Jor-El shot Kal-El into space after the destruction of Krypton, that ship ended up hitting a derelict space satellite, and then he was duplicated. So the one craft was found by criminals named Derek and Bonnie, and they see this as a golden opportunity to raise another super sidekick, especially one with all the abilities that Clark has. Later on, a kryptonite meteor crashes into Earth, and the criminal couple realizes that it doesn't affect the young clone. He grows up in secret, waiting to make his grand entrance as the Super Menace. First things first, let's take care of that other guy though, shall we? He fights the Superman, they fight, and when Superman uses his X-ray vision, he notices something is odd about his foe. And then suddenly, Super Menace makes it rain kryptonite meteors. This of course almost kills Superman, until Super Menace decides, you know what, I don't want to be a Super Menace anymore. We love a good change of heart. He saves Superman, he handles his criminal parents, and then he flies off to return back to his natural state of energy and becomes one with the universe. Number 3, Bat Baby. Making his first steps in Batman issue 147, the 600th time Batman appeared in comics, we see Bruce Wayne as a baby. So after Nails Finney and his gang made a shrink ray, they set their sights on Batman, and it worked like a charm. It was only a shrink ray though. He didn't de-age mentally, which is even better almost. So now he had the same strength and aggression as a full-grown man in a toddler's body. This sounds like the worst case scenario, but Batman was kind of okay with it. He worked with what he got. He's like, okay, if people are gonna treat me as a baby, I'm just gonna dress like a baby. And then he wore a bat suit that no baby has ever worn ever. Classic Batman. Number 2, Holy Batman. Batman Holy Terror was an Elseworlds one-shot released in 1991, written by Alan Brennert. We find Reverend Bruce Wayne. How holy and fun is this? It's 1658, and in this universe, Lord Oliver Cromwell recovered from that fever and he maintained his hold on England. Later in the 20th century, Thomas Wayne, physician to ye old Gotham Town's council, was killed, same with his wife. Now James Gordon is on the case trying to get to the bottom of it, but he believes this was more than just a mugging. So he befriended young Bruce Wayne to maybe try and find some more info. Cut to 20 years later, Gordon is now Gotham Town's High Inquisitor, and Bruce is about to become a priest, and that's when Gordon finally tells Bruce the truth about his parents. He reveals that a man named Joseph Chill was behind the whole thing. The government took down one of their own. How peculiar. Priest in the sheets and bat freak in the streets. That's how we like it. And finally, coming in at number 1, The Bat. Batman Castle of the Bat was released in 1994, written by Jack C. Harris with pencils by Bo Hampton. We're really leaning into the literal bat theme on this list. I kinda love it, not gonna lie. Taking place in South Germany 1819, we get a scene similar to that in The Dark Knight. A masked highwayman robs a carriage. The passenger asks the man if he's ever heard tales of the demon who protects the land, and the highwayman scoffs, says, oh, that's just superstitious, I don't believe in that. And then a bat monster comes in and rips his head off. Dr. Bruce Wayne hears about this attack, and at his home, his castle rather, he tells his hunchback servant Alfredo, that the beast had attacked once again. What beast? What is he talking about? So when Bruce was a kid, his parents were killed in a carriage on a road. So Bruce and Alfredo found Thomas Wayne's brain, collected some body parts, added some electricity, and voila, now Thomas Wayne is back. And he looks like shit. Once bat fluid is added, he becomes a living nightmare of a monster, and his first plan was of course to get revenge on the same guy who killed him decades earlier. We saved the weirdest for last, that's for sure.
And at 10, Black Flash. The embodiment of death for all speedsters, Black Flash is the Grim Reaper of the Speed Force. Making his first appearance in The Flash Volume 2, number 138 in 1998, he was seen before the deaths of several speedsters including Barry Allen, Johnny Quick, and Bart Allen. He also tried to return Wally West to the Speed Force, however was unsuccessful, taking Linda Park instead, Wally's girlfriend, which I have to admit is a pretty big bummer. Since he was unsuccessful the first time, Black Flash then returned to try to claim Wally again, freezing time for everyone without a connection to the Speed Force. But thanks to the combined efforts of multiple speedsters including Jesse Quick, Jay Garrick, and Max Mercury, Wally was able to race Black Flash to the end of time, causing death to have no meaning, defeating the zombie speedster instantly. I mean, I know he's not a zombie, but he looks like one. But that wouldn't stop the Speed Force, since later Barry Allen returned in the Flash Rebirth storyline, becoming the new Black Flash, until Professor Zoom took the title after his corpse was raised in the Darkest Night storyline. Before we move on to number 9 though, if you could do me a huge favor and hit those like and subscribe buttons buttons, that would be amazing. It really helps us out against the eternal struggle of the algorithm and lets us know what you want to see more of. Thanks. Now, let's continue. And at 9, the Black Racer. However, Black Flash was not the first embodiment of death that speedsters had to deal with. Being introduced in New Gods number 3 in 1971, Sergeant William Walker became a servant to Darkseid after being paralyzed during the Vietnam War. But while sharing the same concept, the thing that makes these two speedster death gods different is their abilities. While yes, both are speedsters, the Black Racer possesses the unique power to merge with a host, corrupting that person and enhancing their abilities. He did this with Bart Allen and used that to kill Darkseid during the Darkseid War storyline when the Anti-Monitor had taken control of the Black Racer. Black Racer also kills Darkseid in Final Crisis in place of Barry Allen and Wally West. This was pre-Flashpoint though. Plus, his costume just looks pretty badass if you ask me. This is the kind of evil speedster that you should cosplay. Damn, that would be cool. And at 8, Johnny Quick. Johnny Quick of Earth 3 is an evil version of the Flash who's a member of the Crime Syndicate, basically the Justice League, but evil. Same people, but different alignment. Jonathan Allen was once a high-profile criminal, but got cornered on the roof of Star Labs. While on the roof, Jonathan got struck by lightning, which also shattered the roof. John and his girlfriend fell through that roof, with John landing in a load of chemicals which ended up granting him his super speed. And his girlfriend, Rhonda, ended up gaining powers similar to that of the Atom. Looking at images of this guy, you can tell that he's nuts. Like, he looks like if the Green Goblin became a speedster. Like if Norman got the Carnage symbiote and then got super speed, this is what that would look like. Absolutely bonkers. However, when fighting against the Injustice League of Earth Prime, Johnny underestimated Captain Cold. See, he had managed to disarm Cold, but the gun was also voice activated, which allowed Snart to remotely freeze Johnny's leg and then kick it, shattering it. Johnny tried to crawl away, but was killed thanks to Alexander Luthor stealing his powers and then getting his neck snapped. That's gonna leave a mark.
Number 7, Darkclaw. Coming from the Amalgam universe where DC and Marvel combine powers, figuratively and literally, we get a Wolverine-Batman double feature. First appearing in Legends of the Darkclaw issue 1 back in 1996, at just age 5, young Logan Wayne witnessed the death of his parents. So we have that Batman origin story sprinkled in to lay the foundation. Good stuff, promising stuff right there. And then Logan Wayne was then sent to live with his uncle in Canada. But after poachers ambushed his home, we have even more family members biting the bullet. So far, so sad. Afterwards, Logan Wayne enlisted in the Royal Canadian Air Force and soon after the Weapon X program. That's where the Wolverine origins really start to come in. Logan Wayne got the adamantium treatment, but it was deemed a failure in a way because Logan wasn't a mindless brute. He kept his sanity. So now we're starting to get a little bit more positive. This is good, right on. Afterwards, he was a free man. He studied criminology, forensics, martial arts, gymnastics, and all 127 major styles of combat. That mixed with the claws, good game, dude. Good game. Number 6, Bat-Zaro. Making his first full appearance in Superman Batman issue 20, the world's worst detective and just a straight up villain, Bat-Zaro is the opposite of Batman. Morals, speech, combat, body weight, everything is opposite. So when you have a superhero like Batman who doesn't kill, tries to save the day, and solves crimes, the opposite is bound to be pretty brutal. Bat-Zaro had not one, but 2 pistols that he loved shooting around, and a chain, of course, to whack people with. And he had an upside down bat symbol to remind folks who's who. You know, in case the grinning sharp teeth wasn't enough. He idolizes Bruce Wayne though, funny enough. It's pretty weird because the origins of Bat-Zaro go way back to the Joker. See, Joker created Bat-Zaro simply because he wanted to officially kill a Batman. But when plans went south, Joker tried to fire a bullet into the Batman and Bat-Zaro jumped in the way, sacrificing his life for Batman's. Is this tragic? Yes. Is it a weird one? Absolutely. Number 5, Red Death. Coming from the Dark Multiverse on Earth 52, Dark Days the Casting, issue 1, we meet a Bruce Wayne with the same origins that we're used to. Now he eventually became a hero, yada yada yada, and he fought alongside Robin, and then the next Robin, and then the next Robin. His life was taking a harder toll on him. He was watching all these sidekicks bite the bullet, so now he was desperate to find a new power, a new way to prevent his partners from maybe, I don't know, dying. So he looked at his world's Flash, and he saw his super speed and thought to himself, you know what? I could use that Speed Force better than him. What a statement right there. So he took out every Flash villain himself, kept their advanced weapons, and then used those weapons to fight the Flash. He drove them both into the Speed Force with the Batmobile and the Cosmic Treadmill, and then he absorbed all of Barry's super speed. Now after Batman came back from said Speed Force trip, he referred to himself as Batman the Red Death, where he would then brutally kill Gotham's criminals in the blink of an eye. But here's the kicker, here's the bad part. gets worse rather. Barry still lived inside his mind. He would beg Batman, Red Death, to stop the killing. Imagine hearing somebody in your head. I mean, that alone is a nightmare. Number 4, Civil War Batman. Batman teaming up with Abe Lincoln. Yep, let's go. Batman the Blue, the Gray, and the Bat was released in 1993 from Elliot S. Magan and Alan Weiss. When you need to protect the government's massive stash o' gold, who else do you call but the Caped Crusader and his horse appropriately named Apocalypse? This is a fun story because this era is just too wild to be boring, but in this Elseworld story, Abe Lincoln knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. But it's Abe Lincoln, he can keep a secret or 2 or 3. Bruce had a bat fly in his window the night Abe's messenger arrived, so he took it as a sign and made an epic old-timey batsuit. He's accompanied by Robin, but in here he's named Redbird, and then we find out that old-timey Bruce is actually behind the whole operation this entire time. You lied to Abe Lincoln for gold? Shame. Shame. You're already rich in some universes. You don't need gold. Or maybe he's rich because he stole that gold.
Getting close to the end into number 3, Hot Pursuit. What is the Flash known for? Running really fast, right? Running so fast that he can actually end up beating instantaneous teleportation. So what's the deal with this Flash? Being first introduced in The Flash Volume 3 number 6, Hot Pursuit is a version of Barry Allen from another universe who came to warn his counterpart about an impending disaster, which ends up being Flashpoint. The difference? This Flash doesn't run. Instead, he has a Speed Force powered motorcycle called the Cosmic Motorcycle. Yeah, his cowl is a motorcycle helmet and his suit is in black and white. This version of Barry Allen doesn't seem to have a physical connection to the Speed Force, only being able to access it through his motorcycle. Unfortunately though, Hot Pursuit dies 6 issues later in The Flash Volume 3 number 12 as a part of the Road to Flashpoint event. The moniker of Hot Pursuit would later be adopted by Patty Spivot after she stole his gear from the Central City Police Department. Penultimately in number 2, Speed Demon. I remember a while ago I mentioned an amalgam universe that combined DC and Marvel characters, and I mentioned the Iron Lantern, a combination of Hal Jordan and Tony Stark. Well, today I present you Speed Demon, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Blaze Allen was a circus daredevil who sold his soul to become the first Speed Demon. The demon component of Etrigan was formerly Jay Garrick before the Night Spectre stole Jay's soul. The Night Spectre approached Blaze and asked him to serve him in his attempts to collect souls of the most pure and the most corrupt. Blaze Allen refused. So in an attempt to persuade him, at his wedding, Night Spectre stole Iris's soul. Blaze then accepted the bond, hoping to get Iris back, or at least to ensure her safety. Speed Demon speaks only in rhymes, but is a speedster with a flaming skull head that can also breathe hellfire, which is pretty dope. Wally West, which is an amalgam of Wally West and Danny Ketch, was the next Speed Demon, who accepted the power in order to help his uncle get Iris back, because he still didn't get her back after he accepted the power. Finally, coming in at number 1, the Crash. Oh my god. Coming from Earth C-, this Crash is the fastest animal alive, and a member of the Just a Lot of Animals group, which is this world's Justice League. On Earth C, everyone is some form of animal, and it's probably the most ridiculous thing that you could ever read. While his real name is unknown, the Crash is this universe's Flash. And not only that, but he's actually a turtle. The classic tortoise in the hare scenario. Slow and steady wins the race to get super speed and a connection to the Speed Force apparently. And I'm not even kidding, he fights against characters with names like the Weather Weasel instead of the Weather Wizard. That's hilarious. I love it so much. The Crash was first introduced in Captain Carrot and His Amazing Zoo Crew number 14, which also features superheroes like Wonder Wabbit, that's actually how it's said, Aquaduck, Batmouse, and apparently not a Batman, who is literally a bat for some reason, the Green Lambkin, and not the Green Lantern, and my personal favorite, the Green Sparrow, along with a load of other ridiculous names like The Item. I suggest you go check these out if you're looking for a laugh, because oh my god, this had me cackling. It's great.
Coming in number 10, we've got Thor L. On the surface, this is a pretty cool looking superhero. Nothing too outrageous to see here. No funky animal parts, no silly gag weapons, no ridiculous shoehorning into a larger plot that may or may not make sense. Well, that last one is contestable, but we'll ignore it for now. The thing about Thor L is that he's a fusion of 2 famous heroes, one of which is Thor. Can you guess who number 2 is in this combination? Well, if you thought we were strictly sticking to Marvel today, you'd be wrong. Thor L is the result of Marvel and DC's crossover comics known as amalgam comics. Crossovers are done all the time. They're part of the wicked fun that is comic books. But to have these 2 Goliath comic creators cross over, well, that was something wild. Superman, or Kal-El, plus Thor. What a duo! In this enormous universe-connecting event, many new heroes were born. Thor-El wasn't the only crossover character created, but this is definitely new ground for both these supers involved. He's very blue this time around, thanks to the Superman here being Blue Energy Superman, and has a big ass T on his chest thanks to Thor. A very powerful creature indeed. Not a very long-lived one though, as he only shows up a few times across a couple issues. Coming in at number 9, we've got Iron Hammer. Sticking with the theme of crossovers, let's take a look at one that can be associated with the most ambitious crossover event of all time. The Avengers might seem a little basic at this point, what with them being the focal point of a multi-billion-dollar film franchise that now largely controls the feature film industry, but they used to be something people got really excited for. You could hint at it unendingly and build up the hype as much as you wanted because people really wanted to see Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and the Hulk team up. Eventually they got Spider-Man in there too, phenomenal. A blast and a half, absolutely. But what happens when you quite literally cross some famous characters over? Well, you get Iron Hammer, which, very cool name by the way. He comes from the world of Infinity Warps, where Gamora messes up the universe, causing all sorts of heroes and villains to mishmash together. This results in a whole new squad of crazy characters, including Stark Odinson, the lovely sum of Iron Man and Thor. If you thought these two were strong on their own, just check this out. When Iron Hammer was first conceived, he sort of just lived his life as a human with no memory of anything else. Eventually he did realize his skill with technology, and even further down the line discovered his Asgardian ancestry. The result? Iron Man with Asgardian enhanced technology. Magic and machine, together at last. Coming in at number 8, we've got Zombie Thor. Marvel zombies, what a wild ride for all involved. One would assume that a literal god might be able to resist the zombie virus and fight back, but here we are. I guess it's more of a super zombie virus after all. After a valiant fight to keep hope alive, Thor could fight no longer. The Deadite Legion were too much for him in both numbers and power, and so Thor succumbed to the virus. From there he rose up, looking for a nice snack to eat, and began his life as a zombie. Frankly, zombie Thor doesn't look all that different from regular Thor, save for a much spookier face and a nice set of chompers that we tend to focus on a little more than usual. Oh, and Mjolnir is no longer his weapon. As a zombie, he stops being worthy, which leaves him kinda feeling naked. Instead of remaining as a hammerless zombie, Thor decides to find a new one. And so he does, in the form of a bunch of scraps cobbled together from the rubble. Improvised weapons and zombies, a tale as old as time.
Number 7, Watari. First appearing in 5 Ronin issue 1 back in 2011, Watari is a completely different version of Wade. He's the Deadpool of Earth 11542, referred to in this universe simply as the Fool. The story takes place in 17th century Japan. Watari was one of the best and most dangerous samurai of that time, but like Deadpool of other universes, he was done dirty. He was betrayed by his own friends, he was ambushed by his allies, and then he was just left for death. He laid low for a bit, not by choice. I mean, his face was scarred up, he now had an alcohol problem. He hit rock bottom, but eventually he found his footing and got that long-awaited revenge. We see Watari the Fool make an appearance in Deadpool Kills Deadpool issue 4, alongside some other wacky versions which we can get into later on.
Coming at number 6, we've got Beta Ray Bill. This one is pretty much accidental in how it happened. A super soldier from a race known as Corbinites, Beta Ray Bill was already pretty powerful before being granted the power of Thor. When the Corbinites galaxy was destroyed, Bill was the one designated to protect their planet, and he did so quite well. A very heroic hero, of course. So when he fought Thor over the use of Mjolnir, it turned out that he was indeed worthy of that power. In doing so, he was granted the power of Thor through a weapon called Stormbreaker. Good for you, Bill. Thor. Whatever.
Number 5, the Savage Spider-Man. Spider-Man, but a savage. So savage. This Peter Parker entered comics in Vault of Spiders issue 1. When a plane went down over Antarctica, Peter was the only survivor out of his family. He didn't have powers yet, he didn't swing his way to freedom, but he survived by using the last parachute. During his rough emergency landing, the wind moved him around quite a bit, and unfortunately he landed in one of the worst places on the planet, a spider's nest in Savage Land. I was just done with the spider stuff, now we're back to being itchy again. They all just bit him over and over and over again, and powers of course soon followed. The Savage Spider-Man was the new protector of Savage Land. Later on, he was recruited into the Spider Army by Ghost Spider to fight off the Inheritors back on our Earth 616. Honestly, this is a great version. I love when Wilson Fisk sees the boy growing up again. See, he was the reason the plane went down in the first place those many years ago. So when he returns to see if this Savage Spider-Man is real, he gets a little payback.
Coming in number 4, we've got Venom Thor. the symbiote never gives up. No way, no how. In a universe where it does not attach itself to Eddie Brock, it does its best to find another suitable host. In the case of Venom Thor, it first found Spider-Man. Featured in a What If comic, this time the symbiote hijacks Peter Parker. This causes all sorts of chaos, eventually resulting in it hopping to the Hulk. And then the Jolly Green Giant eventually delivers it to Thor. This is particularly rough because this version of the alien creature doesn't recoil at the introduction of sonic energy. It just feeds off the energy of the heroes it attaches to. So for a while, Venom is born with the body and powers of an Asgardian. Yikes. Eventually, Thor is able to shake it off and defeat it, but that doesn't make up for the very strange image of a venom-colored god of thunder though.
Number 3. Deadpool Kid. The Wild Wild Wade. Okay, an instant classic. Deadpool of Earth 1108 made his first appearance in Deadpool Merc with a Mouth issue 7. When we meet him, he's wanted for bank robbery, arson, putting together a literal stampede, all that Wade goodness. It doesn't matter what timeline you catch him in, shenanigans are in order, clearly. This Deadpool would constantly talk about how much he wanted to take over the town. He had his sights set on Sheriff Fury and of course bounty hunter Logan. This version's quite interesting, but let's be honest, a little limiting what you can do in these dusty towns. So after our 616 Wade shot him in the head and left him for dead, it wasn't until Deadpool kills Deadpool that we see this cowboy again. There's not much you can do in the Wild Wild West. I mean, seeing Wade on a horse or, shooting up saloons, it's cool, but limiting.
Coming in at number 2, we've got Thor. Even less sensical to say and even more goofy, this is an outlandishly cartoonish iteration of the God of Thunder. His story stays the same, his powers remain unchanged, but now Thor is a cartoon bulldog. He's part of the Scavengers, and was born in Arfgard. Oh me, oh my. It's definitely mostly a gag character, originally appearing in an issue of the Spectacular Spider-Ham alongside Peter Porker, but Thor has been around and continues to show up. And at number 1, we've got Thorangutan. Honestly, I just wanted to say this one out loud. Throg and Thur are all fun and all, but the pun action on Thorangutan is unmatched. Say it out loud while looking at this goofy little monkey and tell me you don't crack a smile. Thorangutan is a hero on an Earth ruled by intelligent apes. Ape Avengers, Ape Assemble. And with that, I'll stop.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Spider-Man. We'll kick off this list on an itchy note. This version of Spider-Man from Earth 11580 is actually Spider's Man. You might be asking, wait a minute Taylor, spiders more than one? Oh yeah, he's actually made up of thousands of spiders that work together as if they're one person, like a hive mind. See, before that incident, that horrible incident, Peter and Gwen were visiting Horizon Labs, and instead of one spider taking a bite out of Peter's finger and then blessing him with biceps and perfect vision, he instead fell into a pit of radioactive spiders where they all consumed him, and subsequently his consciousness was spread out through all of those spiders. Hive mind, so gross. How horrible is this already? If I just got robbed and Spider-Man came to save the day, I'd be sick. Just seeing a cover of this guy on Spider-Geddon issue 3 makes me so uncomfortable. I mean, hats off to Christos Gage and George Molina for making this character one of the most unique versions. You can definitely say that, definitely unique. The Spider. Coming from Earth 15, the Spider, also known as Inmate 24739, made his first appearance in Exiles issue 12. Inmate, what's going on with that? Is Peter bad in this reality? Yeah, he's actually pretty horrible. He's a redhead who has a lot in common with Cletus Cassidy, and in turn he gets slapped with 67 consecutive life sentences by a jury. He's not as into the saving lives thing, he's rather into the opposite. He joined Weapon X after being drafted by the Timebreakers. Now, as horrible as the Spider sounds, he still feels like Peter when you read this comic. He has a similar sense of humor as Deadpool here, so it's still fun, although he's evil. Hyperion of Earth 4023 also joined, became the leader, and the Spider stood by his side as they planned on conquering multiple realities. Pete met his fate in issue 44 of Exiles when Firestar hit him with a Mega Blast. He turned into ash. Already cremated, look at that, we get to save money. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It really does help our nerd squad over here in our nerd base. You guys are the best. Thanks for sticking around. Let's keep going with this list. Number 8, Spider-Kid. Making his first appearance in Spider-Force issue 1, Earth 218 Peter's childhood is actually darker this time around, believe it or not. See, both of his parents passed away in a car crash, and Uncle Ben was a mean old man afterwards who was just horrible to Peter all the time. Peter actually changed his name to Charlie, and then he didn't try and be good. He actually became quite a troubled young man. He had to spend 2 years at the Administration for Child Services and then 2 more years at the Horizon Juvenile Detention Center. In order to get by, he chose to steal money from street dealers. He's not a bad kid, although I've just said that he is a few times. He just had a horrible childhood and he slipped down the wrong path. It happens. But that all changed when Charlie was recruited into the Superior Spider Army by Ashley Barton. She calls him Grandpa because he reminds her of an older Pete from her reality. He's like, yeah, I'm 13 though, please don't call me Gramps. Awesome.
Coming in number 7, we've got Revenger Thor. Revenger, not Avenger. And we're not talking about the Revengers from Thor Ragnarok. We'll talk about MCU stuff some other time. For now, we're diving straight into the Cancerverse, where Lovecraftian abominations rule and death has been done away with entirely. That is a weird, tough pill to swallow. Somehow, Lord Marvel has corrupted the Avengers here and made it so that they serve the many angled ones. These creatures resemble the great old ones of Lovecraftian lore and really lean into that cosmic horror angle. Very spooky, very creepy, very mind-boggling. Thor specifically gets a wild makeover, now sporting some weird tentacle protrusions out of his face and glowing red eyes to boot. Definitely not a hero that would bring relief to the face of a scared public.
Number 6. Astro Spider. Jumping on over to Earth 3145, making his first appearance in Spider-Force issue 2, John Jameson III was an astronaut for NASA, and during one mission, a spider got trapped in his suit, which it's an absolute nightmare scenario right there. But when the space shuttle was hit by cosmic waves, John then obtained these amazing new abilities. He didn't come home and stop bank robbers one quip and whip at a time. See, this Earth was now destroyed by a thermonuclear war, so Jameson was assigned to oversee the construction of a spacecraft on the Nautilus platform. He, along with 35 others, are the last of humanity. After this cosmic mishap, John can now read minds. He can create webs of solid telekinetic energy, but he met his fate a few issues later when he was feasted on by Verna. Sometimes being a spider totem sucks. Number 5. Evil Deadpool. Now these names may start sounding a little bit confusing, like Dreadpool is an evil version that kills our heroes, and Evil Deadpool is the result of a collector with a gross hobby. That's right, Evil Deadpool is from the main 616 universe. He came to life in Deadpool Volume 4, Issue 44. Now it all started with this young gal named Ella Whitby. She was a psychiatrist who was obsessed with Wade. She was so obsessed that she would keep body parts that he lost over time. He'd battle it out, lose an arm, she'd go in, carry it like Saving Private Ryan back to her house. Some of us had a rock collection, others collect kneecaps. That's fine, we're all different. So she would keep these parts in her freezer like a maniac right next to the jumbo freezies, and then when Deadpool found out about this horrible cold care package, he threw them all in a dumpster. This was actually the worst thing that Wade could have done, believe it or not, because once those body parts thawed out, they fused and grew back together to make this evil, much worse smelling Deadpool. Number 4. Hostess Cake Spider-Man. I think it's time we talk about one of the weirdest but yummiest versions of Spider-Man. Not only is Peter dishing out quips and flips, but he's also feeding the world too. What a hero. This version was born in an ad for Hostess Twinkies, so naturally its own Marvel universe has to exist. And also, it's fun to make it exist and to think about it. When it came down to taking on villains, Spider-Man wouldn't web them up, instead he would just huck treats at them, because that always works. Twinkies, Hostess cakes, anything, you name it. Funny enough, in Spider-Verse issue 1, the cakes are referred to as golden sponge cakes so that they don't get sued. It's also the same issue where we see the end of Golden Sponge Cake Spidey. It's sad, but if he stuck around for too long, realistically, everybody would just get fat or riddled with cavities.
Spider sense tells me this cake isn't for eating. It's for throwing!
Coming in at number 3, we've got Throg. It's Thor, but he's a frog. Just look at him. Man, what a world we live in where stuff like this is just readily accessible at all times. The god of thunder in adorable amphibian form. This version of Thor pops up a couple times, once being held captive in a jar and once in a run where all the Avengers were animals. The jar frog found in The Void was hinted at being a result of one of Loki's pranks on Thor. Very funny, brother, now turn me back into an Asgardian. The other Throg is a wild tale of Simon Walterson accidentally getting turned into a frog, joining an animal war, coming across a piece of Mjolnir, and transforming into Thor. Throg! It's Thor, but a frog.
Number 2. Spider-Boy. Marvel and DC are powerhouses, both on page and on screen. So when the two companies combine forces, we get some pretty amazing characters like Spider-Boy. Making his first debut in Marvel vs. DC issue 3, residing on Earth 9602, Spider-Boy is an amalgam of Spider-Man and Superboy. How epic is that? Spider-Boy is a clone. Now he's a clone of Peter who was created during an accidental lab explosion. General Ross felt responsible for this explosion, so he ended up adopting the young lab lad. They were a fun duo until Ross was taken out by a mugger. So Pete then became a hero. He put together the suit, became famous almost overnight. That whole event kicked off the with great power comes great responsibility vibe. Now back when he returned to Project Cadmus, Pete was given a web pistol to help him swing around town. In this story, he doesn't have webs here, but it doesn't really matter. Because of his new superpowers, he can focus gravity inwards to make himself stronger and move faster, or he can lower gravity around himself in order to jump higher, further, and faster. He just clicks the off switch on gravity and then climbs walls. Must be nice. Guy probably kills it with wall sits. And finally, number 1, Flash, Betty, and John. For the last one on this list, we figured we'd end on a 3-in-1. What If is releasing weekly episodes on Disney Plus currently, so I have to throw it back to one of my favorite issues from Volume 1 back in the 70s. What if someone else besides Spider-Man had been bitten by the radioactive spider? Written by Don Glutt, What If Volume 1 Issue 7, we get to see Flash Thompson, Betty Brant, and John Jameson get their shot at being Spider-Man. How lucky. First, Flash gets bit, he gets the powers, and he teaches a bad driver a lesson. With his new strength, I mean, he's a little bit too harsh. The middle finger always works, but okay, rocky start, that's fine. Then he decides to take a crack at professional wrestling. He thinks it's gonna be a breeze, but due to said super strength, he killed the guy instead of tapping him out. Not much of a superhero there. The Vulture ends up ending his not so hot streak, so next up we have Betty Brant. Her costume is arguably the flashiest. It makes for great photo shoots, apparently. Gotta get those likes somehow, make those superpowered TikToks. I'm here for it. But when she runs out of web fluid while striking a pose, the thief that takes Uncle Ben's life runs on by, and no one does anything about it. And finally, this issue shows us John Jameson getting his shot. While his outfit was also pretty on point, his judgment was not. John tried to stop a space shuttle from crashing and didn't live to tell the tale. Next time you feel like web swinging to work, just remember that the responsibility thing is just as important as the powers. Number 10, Dog Pool. We'll start off on a cute note, rather. Wade Wilson of Earth 103173, aka Dogpool, made his first appearance in Prelude to Deadpool Corps, Issue 3. Wilson was a dog being used as a test subject for Mascara X. Now, I love this version because it brings to light the animal testing for beauty products that happens, Mascara X taking place of the evil Weapon X in this story. So after the test went south, they thought the dog didn't survive. His body turned all corpse-like, it wasn't breathing, horrible stuff, so they got rid of it. But those healing abilities brought him back to life. He then broke out of the garbage bag and started walking around again. I thought cats were the only ones with 9 lives. What a sight to see. Now, these circus performers did see this. They were driving by and just happened to see this dead dog come back to life, so they used it to make some moolah. He became the main act of their circus, appropriately named the Death-Defying Hound. He was a circus performer until Wade Wilson, the main continuity Deadpool, showed up and then recruited him for the Deadpool Corps. The good boy met his fate in issue 1 of Deadpool Kills Deadpool, but he did so saving Wade, so it's a happier kind of note. Not really, but we'll say it is. Number 9, War. Earth 16558, our Deadpool gets an extreme makeover superpowers edition. He shows up in Extraordinary X-Men issue 8 and we only get to enjoy his presence for 5 issues. After Apocalypse returns in the early 21st century, he recruits Deadpool as one of his 4 horsemen. He recruits him for war. Deadpool and the other horsemen attacked Colossus, got him on the God Squad, and then together the evil team tracked down Storm and their young X-Men. In Extraordinary X-Men issue 10, the X-Men were actually defeated and the Ark, containing 600 mutant embryos, were taken back to Apocalypse. Things weren't looking that great with Wade on the bad side. When the X-Men invaded Apocalypse's kingdom to try and save the day, Deadpool fought back and went at it with Iceman. Now, Deadpool's mask gets ripped here, and then that's when you see Wade with his mouth sewn shut. Not again. We don't like seeing his mouth sewn shut. That's the opposite of what we want. Deadpool cuts his mouth open, and you think he's gonna be like, help me, I don't know what I'm doing. But he actually just releases a swarm of insects all over Iceman, winning that battle in a gross, itchy way. But don't worry, Deadpool gets bugged himself later on. He'll soon know what that feels like. I'll explain more of that later on in this list. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up on this video, that would be awesome. Those likes add up and they really do support us and the company. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Let's get right back to this Deadpool list. Number 8, Deadpool the Duck. Howard the Duck has been seen in both Guardians movies, and he was in Avengers Endgame. We see him gearing up alongside Earth's Mightiest. This dude has been in the same amount of MCU projects as Natalie Portman. Well, actually more, really, if you consider the main continuity. That's pretty insane. He's an important character. So when Deadpool the Duck came out back in 2017, fans were excited to see more of Howard. Howard's driving alone one night when Rocket crash lands into his car. Now he's about to congratulate Rocket on his recent box office success in Guardians, but he's rudely interrupted when the raccoon's eyes light up red and then he leaps at Howard. We got a classic case of space rabies. Some spazies. Some of them don't work. Luckily, this is Deadpool's story, so he comes in at just the right moment, and that's when him and Rocket start battling it out. Howard's trying to smooth things out while this is happening. He knows something's clearly off with Rocket. He's taking cover, he's just trying to stay out of the way. And then Deadpool shows back up in the middle of nowhere, questioning why he doesn't teleport more often, which is a great question. And then when he tries using it again, everybody gets fused together during this teleportation. Well, almost everybody. Coming to you live from Warp World, one of the most out there versions of Peter Parker hit the page in Infinity Wars issue 3. Moon Knight and Spider-Man are gearing up. They're making a game plan to take down Gamora. And Spider-Man says, look, just punch whoever I punch in a second. Deal? Easy peasy. That turns out to be a lot harder than imagined when the both of them merge together. Alongside Arachnite, we got to meet some other amalgams of characters. We got Ghost Panther, Soldier Supreme, Iron Hammer, and more, so much more. Peter's mind was also separated into 4 different personalities, each desiring dominance. So we have Science Pete, the Knight Pete, Friendly Neighborhood Arachnid Pete, and for when it comes to signing checks and shaking hands, we have CEO Pete. Number 6, Dreadpool. In the reality of Earth 12101, the X-Men brought Wade to Dr. Den Brighton, aka Psycho Man, in an attempt to cure him. They wanted him to shut down the voices in Wade's head so he can be, you know, a normal civilian, but he didn't do that, did he? He actually did the opposite. Wade was now encouraged by all these voices in his head to kill the Marvel Universe, all those people, all those superheroes you love. About to meet their fate in a horrible way. He started off by going after the Fantastic Four. Reed and the Thing were gone in just a few pages, and then Sue Storm held Dreadpool off for a bit by making his head explode, which usually does a trick for most villains, but it's Deadpool, so once he healed, she was next to go. Like, the whole Fantastic Four family's gone in like literally 3 pages. It's so sad. Dreadpool then steals a device from Reed that he used to take down the Watcher. Even the Watcher isn't safe in this story, and neither are you. Check it out.
Coming in at number 5, we've got Cyclops Thor. Mjolnir only has one eye, and now Thor does too. Sorry for that terrible joke, I just couldn't help it. Somewhere out there is a universe absolutely stuffed with Cyclops, beings only sporting one eye. Dead center on their heads, the look is an uncanny one indeed. In that very same world, all of the regular heroes we've come to know and love are around, although they're all sporting that singular optical nerve. Thor is included in this mess, and they eventually make it through some dimensional cracks to cause trouble in other realities. Powerful and weird to look at, this version of Thor is a doozy. Very strange indeed.
Number 4, Headpool. Wade Wilson of Earth 2149 first appeared in Marvel Zombies issue 3. The merc with half a mouth was among the population that gets infected in Marvel's zombie run, but then when he's transported to the main 616 universe, he gets taken by armor, and that's when things start to get a little crazy for this guy. He ends up in Savage Land, and believe it or not, the other version that helps main 616 Deadpool assemble the core that I've been mentioning this entire list was this version. The guy with no body, just a head, is actually the perfect sidekick. Minus the non-stop talking, of course. Number 3, Superior Spider. Starting in 2013, this version is the outcome of the Dying Wish storyline when Dr. Octavius planted his mind inside Peter Parker's. Nice little swap. There we go. We see this begin in Amazing Spider-Man issue 698. Peter gets a priority call from the Avengers, and when he meets them all on the raft, Cap informs him that one of his old enemies is dying, and Peter knows that it's Doc Ock before he even tells him. Cap says that he's asking for him. Well, rather, he's asking for Peter Parker. Peter goes in and he asks everybody for a private moment, just the two of them to talk it out, right? But when they're in there for that hot second, it's revealed that they somehow have switched bodies, page 20 and 22. So Peter in Doc's body is freaking out. He's worried what the hell to do, because now he's got his powers and his families and his friends are all at risk. You gotta stay away from those brain-swapping Octobots, that's the key. I'm not gonna tell you what happens because it's really enjoyable. Go check it out yourself. Number 2, Wolverine Pool. First appearing in Cable and Deadpool issue 46, this Wade Wilson still gets the superhero upgrade, but when Weapon X decides to give him the adamantium treatment, things play out a little bit differently. See, later on, he's recruited by Dreadpool, that guy I mentioned, to take on the Deadpool core members, so he's evil. He was doing a pretty good job, that adamantium skeleton was coming in handy, but during a fight, our main 616 Deadpool tossed a grenade full of bugs at Wolverine Pool. Remember I said you got some with bugs earlier? This is payback. This is why you don't play with bugs. So that bug grenade went off and the bugs ended up chewing Wade apart, and all that was left literally was just that adamantium skeleton and claws. It's a pretty creative way to go out, but it's also like really gross. It's kind of like if Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas were to take you out, or if that movie was rated R, it would look kind of something like this. And finally, number 1. Death Mask. On Earth 11683, Reed Richards was able to remove that lethal brain tumor from Wade's head, which opened an entirely new future for Wade. Now he was better than ever. There were no evil voices swirling around in his head. In fact, the only voice in his head was his own bright ideas. This Wade was in fact a genius. This keeps getting more and more positive. That's great. We love happy endings. Nice number 1 smooth landing. Did he solve world hunger? Did he stop floods? Did he cure diseases? No, actually. He was still a criminal, a master criminal, actually. See, with that brain, he ended up building an empire and went by the name Death Mask, so it was actually almost worse in this scenario. Just looking at his outfit, it's pretty obvious whose spot he's taking in this universe. He killed Victor Von Doom and changed a few colors to his evil getup, resulting in Death Mask, this red version of Dr. Doom. Even after Death Mask was beaten by our main Deadpool, it still didn't end. Death Mask then made a deal with Mephisto in order to release these horrible monsters on Earth and survive. One of those monsters was the Infernal Hulk. So he's full of brilliant ideas, they're just also evil. Kicking off the list at number 10, the Devastator. There's a name right there, okay. Bruce Wayne of Earth 1 made his first appearance in Dark Days, the casting. This Batman is one of Barbados' Dark Knights. Now, he started out the usual Batman way, lost his parents, became Batman, hung out with the Justice League. He actually got along with Superman quite well. He genuinely believed in his ideals of hope. But it is Batman we're talking about. Just because he trusted him doesn't mean he wasn't always prepared. Bruce kept the Doomsday virus just in case. So when Superman did go on and become a little crazy and started killing people, Batman figured, okay, now is the time to use this thing. Bruce first used a kryptonite spear to try and do the trick, but Superman just monologued in his face. Nothing was working. So now it's Doomsday time. The Devastator was born. The virus changed Batman instantly, physically of course, but also mentally. Now he had no problem killing what used to be one of his best friends. Using kryptonite breath, Bruce weakened the god and then finished him with some Doomsday spikes. Nice dark note to start the list off. There we go. Number 9. Multiverse Bat Baby. In part 1 of this list, we of course had to mention the time Batman was shrunk down to the size of a baby, so naturally in part 2, we need more baby goodness. Dark Knight's Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights issue 1. Bruce has a plan. Now this version was planning on living a second lifetime. More crimes to solve, more risks to break, more bills to pay. The man is committed. Now he'd already taken down the Joker, Riddler, Two-Face, and Scarecrow at this time, but he wanted more. After his passing, his mind was safely stored in the cyberspace, and it was then transferred into this new body waiting in the Batcave. This time seems way harder for Bruce. See, in the early issues, he just made little trousers and still continued to fight crime. It was fun, it was almost cute. Here, he was rolling downstairs. He couldn't even walk. He probably his pants, and then he just lays down and cries for the rest of the day. The best part is that he has the mind of Bruce still, so those tears just aren't baby tears. That's pure agony. Now he finally figured out, how to use his legs in life. He gets the jetpack to make up for those tiny legs, and he still goes on saving the day as the guardian of Gotham. And before we continue on with this weird list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It helps us out so much. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get back to the video. Also, thank you for 1.1 million subscribers. That's huge. That was a nice thing to wake up to. Number 8. Red Sun Batman. Superman Red Sun was released in 2003. It earned Mark Millar an Eisner Award nomination in 2004, but he always wondered what life would be like if Superman was raised in the Soviet Union. What a fun idea. So in this story, the ship lands on a Ukrainian collective farm instead of Texas, and as for Bruce Wayne in this reality, well, his parents still end up biting the bullet, but this time it's by Stalin's police force. So his main goal was to get back at that captain of said police force, Roslov. This version of Batman, just look at the attire. How do you not love him off the bat? He kidnapped Wonder Woman, tied her up with her own lasso, rude, and then used her to draw Red Sun Superman out. And of course, it worked like a charm. Using simulated red sunlight, he weakened Superman, locked him in a basement, ideally forever, but Wonder Woman broke free, took care of those red sun lamps, and right before Batman was about to get the beatdown of his life, he detonated a bomb in his own chest. Honestly, I think Red Sun Superman would still be a lot more painful than a chest bomb. I mean, still dark either way.
And it's 7, Earth X. Earth X, or Earth 10, Flash was born and raised in a world where Germany won World War II. And since this is a sensitive subject for YouTube, I'm going to avoid using specific terms, so my apologies in advance. While his real name is unknown, Der Blitz, as he's known in German, is the member of the, oh god, I'm going to butcher this, Gretschkidtilga. Oh wait, hold on, that's wrong, I need to yell it. Gretschkidtilga! God, I hate myself for that. Which is basically an evil regime version of the Justice League, also referred to as the JL Axis. The current members are Brunhild, the Earth 10 Wonder Woman, Leatherwing, Earth 10 Batman, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Flash, Green Lantern, and Overman, the Superman of Earth 10. This version of the Flash also appears in the Freedom Fighters The Ray animated series that takes place in the Arrowverse, but was interestingly missing from the Crisis on Earth X crossover that featured characters from this show. Instead, this Flash was just Eobard Thawne from Earth 1 wearing Harrison Wells' face, which leads some to believe that Thawne killed the Earth X version of Flash in order to prove himself to the regime. And at 6, Savitar. This Avatar from the comics is certainly another interesting character, first appearing in Flash Volume 2 number 108 in 1995. The man whose name is still unknown that became Savitar was a Cold War test pilot. As he reached top speed in a test flight for a supersonic fighter plane, the plane was struck by lightning and went down in hostile territory. Once he learned about his speed though, he became obsessed and craved more, like any villain does. He named himself after the Hindu god of motion and spent years studying, learning new powers that no other speedster had mastered. He can protect himself in what is in essence a speed force field, give speed to objects and even other people, and heal injuries instantaneously instead of just way faster. As Savitar's obsession grew, so did his followers, and he became the leader of basically his own self-worshipping cult. That's the dream. And as he desired more, he went after the only speedster around at the time, Johnny Quick. The fight ended up causing Max Mercury to show up, who led him to the speed field where Savitar bounced off. He did at some point return, and instead wanted to eliminate his competition, including the Flash, Impulse, and especially Max. But he ended up dying in the Flash Volume 2 number 111 in 1996. Halfway through in at number 5, Capitalist Couriers. First appearing in the Flash Volume 2 number 6 in 1987, the group originally known as the Red Trinity was created by Russian scientist Pyotr Orlov, I totally butchered that, when he and his partner attempted to recreate Flash's super speed abilities after watching a daring rescue. The second group of test subjects was successful and were named the Red Trinity. The group included Anatoly, Bebek, and Cassiopeia, and they became agents for the Soviet military. But here is where it gets weird. When the third Flash came to enlist the help of Dr. Orlov in the issue of saving Jerry McGee's life, the Red Trinity chose to follow Orlov to America. While there, they became infatuated with American culture and chose to stay in the US, opening a business as a team of super speed messengers called Capitalist Courier Service Inc. Cassiopeia has since died, because he was running up the side of a building trying to make a delivery when his speed vanished and he fell to his death. This was thanks to Savitar's reappearance. These Russian speedsters literally made Amazon Super Prime. That's hilarious and I love it. That's probably what I would do with my powers, honestly, now that I've gotten the idea from this. Thank you. And at 4, Silent Running. When your world is described as a paradise, there isn't much that you can think to screw it up. That's because you didn't consider volcanic eruptions blotting out the sun, sending that once paradise into an ice age. When this happened, surviving members of the Holy Light religion went on a pilgrimage to find salvation for their people. The leader of the Holy Light, Stephen Mallory, left his sons behind while he went on his journey. Brian and Tristan were left alone, with Tristan taking his father's place as leader while he was gone, even though Brian was the eldest. However, upon their father's return, Tristan killed him. Then the brothers went out into the world in search of lightning, one of the foundations of their religion. They eventually got struck by lightning, which had an interesting effect. Tristan, the one who killed their father, was aged, while Brian was given super speed and the power to create what they call green life. So Tristan kinda freaked out, locking Brian in the heart of a machine that pushes back the ice to create a livable city, because Tristan believed this was necessary to save everyone, but considered himself a living god of sorts. He demanded people obey his will and use their life force to keep himself young for centuries, all the while trying to be blessed by lightning, which I'm guessing means getting struck by lightning over and over again.
Number 3. Saint Batman. We'll ride the dark multiverse train out a little more, taking a look now at Jean-Paul Valley. The original story took place when Batman got his back by Bane in 1993. Azrael took over for the Bat while Bruce healed up, and then things went back to normal over time. In Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Nightfall, we see a world where Jean-Paul Valley refused to give the cape back. They went at it at the Batcave, and instead of Bruce reclaiming the costume, he got a devastating hit to the spine. And to make matters even worse, Saint Batman kept Bruce alive, just, without any body parts, of course. His physical strength is unmatched. This Batman juices. He uses venom in his suit, so he operates at a superhuman level. The ultimate backbreaker this time. Number 2, Speeding Bullets Batman. This Elseworld storyline shows us a future where Kal-El landed in Gotham and was subsequently adopted by the other Martha Wayne. The Waynes did end up meeting their fate, regardless of the fact that their newly adopted son has laser vision. But he didn't realize at the time that he could fire heat rays until right after they had died. I mean, that's fair, trauma does things to the body. After this point, Super Bruce wasn't the same at all. He had the powers of a god, but the hatred of the devil. He was a conflicted man. He would repeat the line, the bullets, the bullets, the bullets, over and over again. He was mentally unstable, obviously. So he hid from the world in his mansion of solitude, and over time, Bruce decided that he should use his powers and just be a hero, instead of hiding. Taking up the identity of the Batman, he would patrol the streets looking for crime, but like I said, he was still a troubled guy. His version of saving the day was burning the flesh off of criminals. Number 1, Thomas Wayne. Coming from the Flashpoint storyline released in 2011, writer Jeff Johns and Andy Kubert brought us Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, when he was actually the one to become Batman. See, in this universe, Bruce Wayne was actually the one who got shot that night in the alley. The world of Flashpoint is this altered reality that Barry accidentally ends up in, where Thomas is older, more brutal, and he's like this evil, dark Batman. And Bruce's mother, Martha, becomes so traumatized by what happens to her son that in this reality she becomes the Joker. So this Batman is very okay with using guns. In fact, he actually prefers it.
Number 10, Wonder Woman Dark Knight's Death Metal. Now, although this is technically in the main continuity, the Wonder Woman that appears in Dark Knight's Death Metal absolutely deserves a spot on this list today because she is one serious badass. Introduced to us in the first issue of Dark Knight's Death Metal, Wonder Woman alongside Swamp Thing is a guard of the demonic-looking prison that holds any villain that does not want to team up with the Batman who laughs. So it would kind of seem like she's working for him, but it's revealed later that is not the case when she just impales and rips the Batman who laughs in two with her new awesome-looking weapon, the Chainsaw of Truth. Wonder Woman's whole goal in this storyline is to correct the mistakes that have been made and to set everything back on track by somehow resetting the timeline. Basically, she's the Wonder Woman we all know and love, stuck in one of the darkest and scariest DC storylines to date, and that is why she is starting off our list today. Check her out for yourself, starting with 2020's Dark Knight's Death Metal, Volume 1, Number 1. Number 9, Bizarra. You can probably guess it from the name, but Bizarra is the Bizarro version of Wonder Woman. Now, if you're not familiar with Bizarro, he is basically an incomplete clone of Superman, which means that Bizarra is an incomplete clone of Wonder Woman. She was created using the powers of the Fifth Dimension and is meant to be the evil counterpart to our Wonder Woman, but I think we all know that Bizarro versions of any hero never really get the job done. Even though Bizarra possesses both the bracelets of submission and the lasso of truth like her counterpart, she's only strong enough to challenge Wonder Woman in a one-on-one duel, and when it comes to brains, oh man, trust me, she does not even come close to Wonder Woman. As a member of the Injustice League of Un-America, Bizarro was one of the many that was captured by Metallo in his attempt to rule over Bizarro World, but was thankfully freed by Bizarro himself. Now, I think my favorite thing about Bizarra and the other Bizarro copies is their way of speaking. She spoke in a very twisted tongue and always meant the opposite of what she said. For example, when she says, "I love you," she actually means, "I hate you." Check her out for yourself in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, Number 1. Number 8, Brunhilde. Hailing from Earth 10, a universe where many of our favorite heroes have been turned into villainous versions of themselves, comes Valkyrie Brunhilde, the Wonder Woman of this Earth that is based on Norse mythology, as opposed to, the original Greek. On Earth 10, all these superheroes we're familiar with are part of the German army and are believers of fascism, so from that you can probably assume that most of them are pure evil. Brunhilde is a member of the New Reichman alongside other dark iterations of the Justice League members, whose only real goal is to rid the world of the freedom fighters and spread their ideals across the land. The New Reichman are, however, taken down pretty much from the inside after Overman began to feel guilty about his past deeds. Honestly, put simply, Brunhilde is an evil version of Wonder Woman that can and will go to any lengths necessary to get the job done. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, Number 1.
Number 7, Magic Batman. Superman Batman Sorcerer Kings is a 4-parter written by Cullen Bunn, beginning with Superman Batman issue 81. On the cover we see Batman's tool belt, but this time it's made of elixirs and potions. What's the deal here? So after witches and warlocks tried to sacrifice our sun, things went south and now every electronic was literally vaporized. That means no more TikTok, sorry. The future was looking quite grim. To see Batman punch warlocks and witches in the mouth, I mean at one point he says, no more hocus pocus. In part 2, Bruce pulls out a whistle, obviously he gets mocked, and then when the Batwing arrives, it's more than useful. The Batwing being a magical dragon, of course. Number 6, Emo Batman. Back in 1999, we got to see one of the moodiest versions of Bruce Wayne. Coming from Elseworld's 80-page giant, he was one of the members of the group the Pennyworths, who was discovered and signed by Lex Luthor. This sounds funny considering the Batman we know and love, but it's still really sad. For example, Lex didn't care about the well-being of who he signed as long as they're making that moolah. And on top of that, Bruce was struggling with substance abuse problems and his last album bombed. It didn't even go gold. How sad is that? So soon after, Lex sold his record label to Darkside Incorporated. Imagine watching Battle of the Bands and emo Bruce Wayne starts setting up shop. What a dream show. Number 5. Prohibition Batman. This alternate version of Batman first appeared in Batman Scar of the Bat, but this time it was Elliot Ness. Elliot was a federal agent, and instead of going toe-to-toe with the Joker, Elliot is now trying to bring down Al Capone. Now of course this takes place during the Prohibition era in Chicago, and Elliot was part of a team referred to as the Untouchables. I love this alternate version because it's real history that's being played with. Elliot Ness was a real guy who led the Untouchables in 1903. The story is a fun one-off, but Elliot does reappear later on in Teen Titans Volume 3, issue 31. It's a brief appearance, but he's still out there. I wonder if real-life Elliot Ness ever read DC Comics back in those early days. Him and his Tommy gun reading Batman in a speakeasy? I can see it. Number 4. Batman the Silenced. The original Hush storyline by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee introduces Bruce's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot. Out of jealousy, he tries to take down Batman using the alias Hush, but in Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush, we see a different life play out this time. When Thomas and Martha Wayne were shot that fateful night, Bruce was of course devastated, but Alfred didn't end up taking him in like normal continuity. Instead, he was taken in by those Elliots. Bruce didn't work through his trauma by fighting crime and saving lives. Instead, he grew more and more unstable from his childhood, so much so that the Elliots transferred him to a mental asylum, while Thomas Elliot grew up to take control over Wayne Industries. Horrible, what a horrible alternate reality. So once Tommy became a senator, he was able to transfer Bruce to Arkham Asylum, where Jonathan Crane would perform these operations. While in there, Alfred sent in Jack Napier as a mole to help Bruce, and Alfred also told Bruce about his parents and what really happened. So Jack was in there to help Bruce get in touch with people who can help him get payback. So he received training in every field from lunatics in Arkham Asylum. He came out talented but tainted after faking his own death. Once free, he went by the name of Batman the Silenced.
Number 3, Superwoman. I feel like we all knew this alternate Wonder Woman was going to end up on this list today. Hailing from Earth 3, the Earth that is said to be the birthplace of evil, Superwoman is a renegade Amazon who is also taking on the identity of Lois Lane, depending on the version that we're talking about here. Depending on her origin, she is either from Paradise Island or its antimatter equivalent known as Damnation Island. While there are many versions of her out there, one thing that they all have in common is her sadistic personality and the love triangle she has with her colleagues. Equipped with a lasso of submission, a barbed and much scarier looking version of the lasso of truth that forces the captor to not only comply with the user, but also fall in love with them, which she has used a few times to her advantage, if you know what I mean. As a member of the crime syndicate, she helped imprison most of the members of the various Justice Leagues in the Firestorm Matrix and began a reign of terror over the world, eliminating any resistance in their way. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with 1964's Justice League of America number 29, or skip ahead to 2013's Justice League Volume 2, number 23. Number 2, Injustice Wonder Woman. Easily one of the most dark and evil versions of Wonder Woman out there. Not only did she see Superman's descent into evil before it ever happened, but she also actively encouraged it, practically manipulating the Man of Steel when he was at his worst for her own personal gain. Not only that, but by the events of the original Injustice video game, she had been ruling Paradise Island with an iron fist and showed absolutely no remorse. She served as Superman's right hand and took the place of Lois Lane as his new love interest. However, he clearly showed no love towards her because he was still mourning the loss of his dead wife, who he killed himself. When she is confronted by her mainstream counterpart, the mainstream Wonder Woman reprimands her for blindly following a man who does not feel as much devotion to her as she does to him. And once Wonder Woman is defeated, she is taken by her fellow Amazons to be imprisoned for her role in the regime and is later seen on Kahndaq during the events of Injustice 2 as she has been exiled. Take a look at her story for yourself, starting with 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us #1, or honestly just feel free to replay the games. And finally, number 1, Flashpoint Wonder Woman. When the Flash accidentally created Flashpoint as a result of attempting to save his mother, the ripple effects changed the timeline to the worst it's ever been. You know, Batman is Thomas Wayne, Superman is in a government facility, and Wonder Woman is the monarch of the Amazons and currently at war with Atlantis, all because she killed Aquaman's wife, who knew Wonder Woman was having an affair with her husband. With all of the normal powers and accessories that make Wonder Woman a formidable foe, this iteration of Wonder Woman seems to lack the empathy that prevents Diana from absolutely losing it and killing everyone. As the war went on, Aquaman and Wonder Woman forged an alliance to take down a mutual enemy, Batman. As both monarchs send their troops to Batman's lair, the world is erased, killing every single inhabitant. Absolutely cruel and bloodthirsty, this Wonder Woman has something that she shares with her Injustice counterpart: her lack of love, and above all, her sickening lack of humanity. Now, I love the Flashpoint timeline with all of my heart, so why not check it and her out for yourself, starting with 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, number 1.
And at 10, Future Flash. The Future Flash is certainly an odd character, not due to anything about them, be it physically or otherwise, but because of his motives. The Future Flash is a version of Barry Allen from the future who blamed himself for the death of Wally West. In an effort to correct his mistakes and try to prevent this tragedy, he starts killing enemies to gain enough speed to travel back in time. He starts by killing Gorilla Grodd with a microbomb he phases into his head. Then he eventually kills enough people to travel back to kill one final enemy: himself. His goal this whole time was to travel back to before Wally dies and kill his old self, preventing any of this from happening. At least, he thinks. Which honestly is a pretty awful plan if you ask me. Like, I know that it's like, well, alternate timelines or whatever, but if you went back in time and killed yourself, wouldn't you then not be alive in order to go back and kill yourself, thus making it impossible for you to kill a past version of yourself? I mean, you could kill your future self, but not your past one. It just seems odd to me, honestly. Though Future Flash is evidently stopped, he does give Barry a clue about the murder of his mother, saying only one word: Thawne. And at 9, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster version of Batman from the Dark Multiverse, and no, not the Universal one. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but as various Robins kept dying, Batman got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his methods. This eventually leads him to Barry, who refuses to give Bruce his Speed Force powers. So Batman uses the various rogues' weapons to fight Barry, knocking him out. Once Barry was unconscious, Bruce tied him to the front of a cosmic treadmill-improved Batmobile and drives them both into the Speed Force. When entering the Speed Force, Barry and Bruce end up fusing together into a Batman with super speed, while Barry's mind was trapped in Bruce's body. He then gets a visit from the Batman Who Laughs, who asks him to join Barbados's Dark Knights, whose goal is conquering the multiverse. Eventually, he gets exposed to a large dose of positive energy, which allows Barry Allen to regain control, helping in the fight against the Dark Knights. But the positive energy also kills him, and Red Death explodes into light. Fun. And at 8, Daniel West. First appearing in The Flash Volume 4 number 0 in 2012, Daniel West's mother died while giving birth to him, something that his father never forgave him for. Iris West, as his sister, protected and supported Daniel until he ended up pushing their father down the stairs and crippled him for life. After that incident, due to fear of being shunned by Iris, Daniel fled and became a small-time thug by age 18. When trying to make it to the big times, he was stopped by the Flash and was sent to prison for 5 years. Eventually he got out, but was kidnapped by gorillas and then saved from those gorillas by the Rogue, who then he tried to escape, but got hit with a monorail powered by a Speed Force battery. This is what gave Daniel his speed, although it was dependent on the charge of that battery. So in an effort to go back in time and kill his father to save his relationship with Iris, which is kinda backwards buddy, but you know, you do you, he started killing speedsters to gain enough speed to make the journey. In the end, he was stopped by the Flash, who convinced him to give up his speed. Daniel West is one of the rogues that Future Flash ended up killing in his mission to gain enough speed to, in essence, do the same thing that Daniel wanted to do, except Future Flash was killing himself, not his father. But Daniel officially died in New Suicide Squad Annual number 1 in 2015.
Number 7, Deceased Wonder Woman. Taking place in the Deceased DC universe, Deceased is a mini-series that follows the aftermath of Cyborg's body being used to carry a version of the anti-life equation that ended up turning the general population into zombies. In this mini-series, we see Wonder Woman become a member of the Unliving, which is basically DC's equivalent of zombies, whose whole purpose is to spread anti-life by either infecting or killing living things. They show very little signs of intelligence, and they still retain the ability to utilize their skill sets, powers, and technologies respectively to a surprisingly effective manner. The Infected have also shown numerous times of coming up with very elaborate strategies and tactical decisions to bypass pockets of resistance and cause as much death and destruction as possible. Our Infected Wonder Woman actually showed that she was able to form coherent and full sentences when she was interrogated by Cyborg, implying that she still has some humanity left in her. her. However, after being set free, she immediately decapitated Cyborg to preserve any secret she told him. Honestly, all I have to say is Wonder Woman's strength and skills combined with the mind and body of a zombie makes for a scary hero. So check her out for yourself, starting with 2019's Deceased, number 1. Number 6, Whom God Destroys Wonder Woman. This version of Wonder Woman only showed up in a 4-issue series called Superman and Wonder Woman Who Gods Destroy. This storyline takes place in an alternate world where Europe is still under the control of the Germans, and Lois Lane actually steps up to the plate as the new Wonder Woman in order to protect those around her from the tyrannical ruling of the original Wonder Woman and Superman. Not a whole lot is known about this evil Wonder Woman other than the fact that she betrayed her home in order to obtain more power. And just like the other evil versions of her, her lack of humanity is incredibly evident as she looks down on Lois Lane's Wonder Woman for just being immortal. The story ends with Lois defeating the evil Wonder Woman, and it is revealed that the gods Zeus and Hera were actually playing a game of chess using the world as their chess pieces. And that's why everything is so messed up. Oddly enough though, the story doesn't quite end there because once everyone is defeated, everything seems to be pretty much back to normal. Superman, Lois, and Wonder Woman all decide to live together on Superman's fortress on the moon. Check out this miniseries for yourself, starting with 1997's Superman and Wonder Woman Whom Gods Destroy, number 1. Number 5, Frank Miller's Wonder Woman. Hopefully we all know who Frank Miller is, you know, the writer of The Dark Knight Returns and Daredevil Born Again. Well, Miller also took a crack at the character that is Wonder Woman in his Batman series The Dark Knight Strikes Back. In this series, heroes like Superman, Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel have been forced to work for the government since their loved ones are being held hostage and are under threat. Superman is even ordered by the president, who turns out to be a computer-generated front for Lex Luthor and Brainiac, to stop Batman. It eventually gets to the point in the story where Superman, Wonder Woman, and their daughter Lara joins forces with Batman once again because they deem his plan to be the only way to get out of this whole mess. Now I'll be honest, this Wonder Woman isn't on this list today because of how dark the story is. It's mostly because this is considered to be one of the worst incarnations of Wonder Woman to date. Now she's definitely the warrior you expect from Wonder Woman, but her cold and quite frankly sexist portrayal in the comics was nothing short of distasteful. It also doesn't help that her humanity was put in question throughout the entirety of the graphic novel. If you feel like you can stomach it, check out this Wonder Woman and this whole series starting with 2002's The Dark Knight Strikes Again, number 1. Number 4, Wonder Woman God of War. Following 2011's Flashpoint event, DC rebooted the entirety of its continuity into the New 52. In the new Wonder Woman, the story of Hippolyta creating Diana from clay is revealed to actually be a lie, and Diana is actually a child of Zeus, and the whole clay bit was a cover story intended to keep Zeus's jealous wife Hera from killing her. Sometime later during her training, Diana became the secret protege of Ares, the god of war, only to have him drop her when she refused to kill for him. Years later, after Diana learned her true origin, she found herself embroiled in the power struggles of her Olympian kin. In the course of one adventure, she had to kill Ares, which made her the new god of war, and although she fought against the role for a while, as the battle against the monstrous firstborn of Zeus heated up, she stepped right into the job. Honestly, who knows what Wonder Woman creator William Marston would have made of this, given that he wrote her as this force of peace and this nemesis of the god of war. He might be happier with the events in DC Rebirth, which implies that the whole, Diana's New 52 adventures didn't actually happen.
Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Wizard. This version of the Flash actually comes from the Marvel Universe, believe it or not. And while yes, the Speedsters are a superhero archetype now, this one is a deliberate reference to the Flash from an unofficial Justice League vs Avengers crossover fight in the Marvel Universe. The Wizard is a member of the Squadron Supreme, which comes from a parallel dimension of the Marvel Universe. Stanley Stewart is his name, and while running late one night, he ran through a strange fog. Over the next few weeks, he gained the ability to run faster than anyone else. The original goal of the Squadron, which Wizard was a founding member of, was to create a utopia, which they would have accomplished. They turned much of the world into a paradise within the first year, but stopped when a former member, known as Nighthawk, convinced them that it was in essence a dictatorship. Shortly after the project ended, multiple members of the team got stranded in the Marvel Universe, but did end up making it home. Penultimately, in at number 2, No Rules to Follow. In an Elseworld story where metahumans are hated, much like mutants in the Marvel Universe, 10 individuals with superpowers banded together to try and get the world to trust them by doing good deeds. These people, who on other Earths would be known as the Flash, Shark, Fire, Dr. Light, Polaris, Power Girl, Poison Ivy, Tasmanian Devil, Changeling, and Metamorpho. But unfortunately, they didn't accomplish their goal, since their attempts to contain a nuclear meltdown made everything worse. After this disaster, metahumans went into hiding, and a few metas, Flash included, begin raiding military bases that had previously attacked them. But after a battle with the Control Squad, which was a group of high-tech operatives with the Wayne Foundation, created to fight the metahuman menace, caused an even further split, resulting in Ivy, Changeling, and Metamorpho all hating the military even more. But when Superman showed himself after some convincing, Wayne funded a new group, made of the original 10 metas minus those who wanted revenge, and replaced those 3 with Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, and Superman. This new group, which was dedicated to upholding tolerance and justice for humans and metahumans alike, became known as the Justice League. But this version of the Flash also looks like really weird. It looks like if Juggernaut was cosplaying the Flash. Straight up. Finally, in at number 1, the terrific What's-It. Last time I talked about the Crash, a turtle from Earth C- that has super speed, but now I bring you an even more ridiculous version, the terrific What's-It. Merton McSnurtle first appeared in Funny Stuff number 1 in 1944 and was a World War II era hero on Earth C-. He has super speed, super strength, and can fly. And the reason he's called What's-It is because in an effort to conceal his identity, wait for it, he takes off his shell when he puts on his costume, so nobody knows that he's a turtle. That's even funnier than the whole like glasses thing for Superman. This version of the Flash even dresses like Jay Garrick with the helmet and everything. I'm not kidding. It's absolutely incredible. I love it so much. His name is McSnurtle. He's McSnurtle the turtle. Hell yeah, baby.